Welcome. I am your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on social media at MMA LOTN, joined as always by my guy Cody Saftik. You guys can follow him at CJ Saftik on Twitter. And we are here propping you up for UFC Long Island, headlined by a featherweight fight between Brian T. City Ortega and Yair Rodriguez. And Cody reminded me to remind you guys right off the bat because nobody wants to get caught napping tomorrow. 11 a.m. Eastern start time for the prelims. So for you PS tiers, I feel bad that you got to get up nice and early, 8 a.m. to catch these fights. But please don't get caught napping because there's some great fights sprinkled throughout this card, not to mention in front of a live crowd. That always adds an added element of, just excitement and anticipation. Just seeing these guys go out there and finally fight in front of a crowd, especially with the whole COVID era that we were stuck in for the last 2 years. Before we get into that, though, Cody, how's it going, my brother? It's been a week. How's your last week been?
Good. Well, we hit the top 2 tickets last week. That's all I can hope for and pray for. Props weren't so bad either. And again, this card, I know I say this every week, so I sound like a broken record, but like this card is greasy, right? And they're all greasy, especially lately, but it's like, what are the spots you like? Who's the guy that you trust? I'm looking at putting a Brian Ortega in my top ticket because I can hedge out and because I like him, but who goes with him, right? There's so many weird spots, but that's why we hit you with the prop show, right? Maybe we can find these little hidden gems. Maybe we don't know necessarily who's going to win for sure, but the fight's definitely going to go the distance. Or in some of these spots, it definitely is not going to go the distance. So happy to be joined as always. Normally we talk for 2 hours, and I'm sure we will again today. But I do somewhat got into a rush. I'm going to a wiener dog race today. So my brother's racing his wiener dog.
I need to get Alfred involved.
Is Alfred fast? Everybody says my wiener dog's the fastest.
He's got some legs on him. He grew up in a farm chasing goats and shit. So I'm sure he has it in him. If it's really, if you throw a treat really far, I'm sure he'll go after it. But where's this wiener dog race? Jeez.
Yeah, it's going down in like Elora, Grand River Raceway. It's at a horse racing track, right? And it's 3 heats, right? So there's 20 dogs entered, 20 wiener dogs entered, and then they run their first heat, which is like sets of 5. And then they take eventually the top 3 from all the divisions, whatever, and you race a final. Final goes for $500 cash.
Bro,
and a $500 Ren's Pet Depot gift card. So
yes,
got to get in that action. Yeah, unfortunately, my best friend Sophie, best friend of 18 years, recently passed away. But wiener dogs are the best. So I'm gonna go to that, pre-race that dog galley, and get the victory.
Yeah, no, dude, this is the first time I'm hearing about that. I might have to quickly sneak the wife out if I can get out there early enough. I love Elora as well. Very, very nice little small town there. The Elora Gorge is obviously very great out there as well too. One of my buddies lives out there, so I've visited a couple times. But man, I'm going to jot that down right now. Hopefully, I can make it out there because that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, let's get back to the fight talk here, and let's just start it off with the quick Cloudbet recap that we normally do. For the special props that they dropped for us. So let me just bring it up on the screen here real quick. So a couple props that we had through Cloudbet for the RDA Fiziev card, first of which was the significant strike spread. And I believe Fiziev only outlanded RDA by about 10 significant strikes. So the plus 26.5 on RDA cashes there at minus 112. Even though he gets knocked out in the 5th round, he still manages to keep the significant strikes close enough for that prop to cash out. The tough alumni. Ooh, it was a tough night for the tough alumni. Gore gets knocked out in the 1st round by Cody Brundage. Tercios doesn't even know he was in a fight, goes out there and tries to do his best Street Fighter imitation, loses that fight. And then Johnson, there was an argument that he won that fight. I felt pretty good about it once went to the scorecards, but didn't end up cashing. So all in all, 0 tough alumni get it done last weekend, and that actually clashes for plus 790 if anybody actually jumped in on that prop. So solid prop there. In terms of fight of the night, we also go with Michael Johnson and Jamie Mullarkey at plus 900. Good cash there for anybody that expected that to be the war that it was. Fastest finish on the main card ends up going to Chase Sherman. It was a 3rd round finish. But it was the earliest on the main card, so he cashes for plus 1,000, goes into absolute guerrilla mode in that 3rd round and gets Jared Vandera out of there. And then lastly, we had the Will Fiziev finally reach main event rounds. It hits on yes at minus 257 for that fight to start round 4. And then obviously we saw him go out there and get that finish in round 5. So big shout out to Fiziev for doubting the haters there, right? Well, not really the haters, but more so the detractors saying that he couldn't get anything done. The later that this fight goes, he goes out there and gets a finish. Before we continue this, Cody, I would love to get your thoughts on that stoppage, right? That seems to be a little bit of the controversy there. I thought it was a great stoppage, especially once they released that other angle where you see RDA get hit on the ground and his eyes are just all over the place. To me, I tweeted out, it didn't look like somebody that wanted to get hit any further or deserved to be punched any further. What were your thoughts on that finish or that stoppage?
You know me, I hate Mark Smith. So as soon as he jumped in, I was like, look at this idiot blowing another one. This fight's good. It's a scrap. He's hurt, big time hurt, but it's the championship rounds. It's a 5-round fight. It's the main event. He's a former champion. Does he not deserve at least a chance to defend himself? But when you stop a fight and the guy still wants to continue, they'll protest the fact that I still want to continue. He laid down. The camera goes to Fiziev celebrating. It goes to the crowd. It goes back to Fiziev. It goes back to RDA. He's still on the ground. I was like, he still hasn't gotten up. What does that tell you? Done. So as much as I don't like Mark Smith and the optics of it looked early, it was a good stoppage.
Yeah, I'm glad with that one as well. I thought it was a great stoppage. It looked early right off the jump, but once you see the replay, the guy was out of it, and you don't want him to take any more damage than that. In terms of our 3 best props last week as well, too, you touched on it, Cody. We did pretty well. Well, at least you did. You had 2 of your 3. I believe the first one being of the Shevchenko via decision at plus 125. Great cash there. Bohayo via decision at plus 225. He was really having to fight for it, especially with the amount of submission defense that we saw there from Petrosian. But I knew you knew that going into that fight, hence why you went with the decision and not Bohayo inside the distance. So good cash there. Myself, I went 1-3 on props, but my juiciest one did end up cashing, which is Kakhramonov via decision at plus 330. That was the one that we went head-to-head on. I felt pretty damn confident about it. And man, he looked like Ronnie Lawrence in there, right? Like everybody expected what Kakhramonov did. Ronnie Lawrence ended up, not doing that. So what were your thoughts on that? Quick thoughts, and then we'll get into the card here.
Yeah, well, first of all, that's why we make a good team, right? I got 2, you got 1. Basically, we went 3 for 6. 50%, baby! All exactly. Plus money.
Plus money,
all
exactly.
Plus money. So, I mean, it was a good week in that department. In terms of the Ronnie Lawrence fight, yeah, that's the tough thing about capping, but that's why you got to try to cover all your bases. I knew going in, I was like, ooh, Ronnie Lawrence keeps this thing at distance and strikes, he'll be good. If Ronnie Lawrence is the guy initiating the clinch and shooting the takedowns, he'll be good. If he can press him up against the cage, he'll be good. At no point did I think to myself, what if Kakhramonov comes out here and shoots 25 takedowns, right? Well, shit. Turns out he out-wrestled Ronnie pretty good. So that one was a tough one. It was a tough one, too, because I didn't like, but things could have shook out really good for me last week for sure. Unfortunately, I had Ronnie Lawrence on the 3rd ticket. He lost. Things got blown up. But as you know, you're an OG veteran of the game now. As you know, you get bounces here, you get bounces there. And maybe I didn't deserve the Jamie Malarkey win, which in hindsight made last week very good on a profit standpoint. Did he actually win the fight? I don't know. And on a cloud bet standpoint, like so close, I thought, with the Chase Sherman fight of the night, right? What a banger. But now, Malarkey stole it. At least he squeaked the greasy decision to round out things overall for me. But, I really liked Ronnie Lawrence, and he showed his limitations and his capabilities. Not saying I wouldn't bet him again going forward. He just needs the proper style matchup. But the tough part about betting the unknowns in this game is just like sometimes Kakhramonov is more legit than you think, and we should know that now. And props to you because 1, you called it. 2, you backed it up and physically bet it. You made it one of your top 3 plays. And 3, you did the tape research. You saw the guy fight Umar Nurmagomedov, and it's like this kid's scrapping him tooth and nail 4 years ago. How much better do you think he's gotten? Ronnie Lawrence is good. This kid might be great. I'm not saying he's great, but he's damn good. So kudos to you, my friend.
Yeah, I heard nothing about good things about Kakhramonov's wrestling abilities, even on the mats itself, right? Not just the fights that we see and that we have access to. So I really wanted to back that up there. I'm glad that it worked out, but I think that Ronnie Lawrence, like you said, with the perfect stylistic matchup, should be able to showcase that 6, 8, 10 takedown Ronnie Lawrence that we're used to seeing. But in that matchup, he was technically out-wrestled. that's exactly what happened that night. All right, let us get right into this card. We got a 12-fight main card again, 11 a.m. Eastern start time tomorrow for the prelims. And the first fight kicking things off is the UFC debut of Emily Ducote. She's going up against UFC veteran Jessica Penne. In terms of odds, we got -150 on Ducote, +130 the return on Jessica Penne. And I've been waiting for the UFC debut of Emily Ducote for a while now. I knew she had what it takes to at least cut it in that top 20, top 15 of that strawweight division. But over her last 3 fights, she's really turned the corner in terms of rounding out her game overall. She obviously went on a pretty tough streak in the Bellator ring, where she actually ended up getting 2 title shots there, both to Ilima-Lei Macfarlane. She loses a decision in the first one. She ends up getting armbarred in the 5th round of the second one. That starts a 2-fight losing streak from her, but then she picks up 2 wins, loses a close split to Kanako Murata, who's a very solid wrestler in her own right, but then since then managing to squeak off 3 straight wins here, 2 of them being over UFC veterans Juliana Lima, and that beautiful finish via head kick against Danielle Taylor, probably knockout of the year last year. If you're talking to me, that you don't see it at this weight class that often. At 115 pounds, we don't see women put other women out like that. And Emily Ducote just absolutely Mortal Kombat fatality to her that night. And then obviously she follows up with a great performance against Alicia Zapatella, where she pretty much beats her, pillar to post for 10 minutes before they decide to throw in the towel there, or at least the doctor decides she shouldn't fight any longer here. And that's why we ended up getting that fight stopped. Jessica Penne, on the other hand, she's coming off a submission victory over Karolina Kovacevic at UFC 265 almost a year ago. She's had a couple of fights fall out since then, 2 of which were supposed to be up against Luana Pinheiro. Those both fall through. She was scheduled to fight Brianna Van Buren, now Brianna Fortino, on this card. Fortino pulls out. That would have been her first fight as a mom on the Fortino side. Maybe it had something to do with that as to why she pulled out. But in this matchup, we obviously have a 3-inch height advantage for Jessica Penne. She's obviously the better jiu-jitsu player, but I think that Emily Ducote is the better fighter overall. Her striking is improving. Her wrestling kind of used to be her go-to back in the day, right? In her Bellator days, she looked for the takedown and try to mix it up on the ground. But now we are seeing over and over again that improvement with her striking. We saw it in the Lima fight. We obviously saw it in the Danielle Taylor fight, and we saw it in the Zapatella fight. But I think that as we start taking steps up in competition and going up against tougher veterans, it's going to get harder and harder to finish these girls on the feet like Ducote's been doing over the last couple fights. So I do lean more so on the Ducote side here, and even Ducote by decision. I think she can grind this fight out, whether it be with her grappling or her striking. History would say don't mess around in the grappling. We saw what happened in the Lupita Godinez fight with Jessica Penne, where Penne just squeaks it out by getting a little bit of control time on the back and just mixing it up a little bit more in the grappling compared to what Godinez was having success with there. Again, Penne couldn't ask more of a gift in that Karolina Kovacevic fight, with Kovacevic willingly trading with her on the ground there and giving her a shot to win this fight via submission. That's exactly what happened that night. But with Ducote here, I think that she grinds this fight out more so with the striking. I hope she doesn't go to her grappling, because I think that would be an ill-fated mistake. Although she could still win it there, she's giving Penne a reason to win that fight, or at least a chance to win that fight. So I'm going to go Ducote by decision, which is currently sitting at +165. But I think that, the fight goes to decision here at -165 is not a bad shot either. I think Ducote could potentially get the finish on the feet, but I think more often than not, we see this fight go to a decision, which is why I'd rather take that slight chalk at -165. But in terms of a specific prop here, I'm going to go Ducote by decision at +165. What about yourself, my friend?
Yeah, I got the same thing. I've been really interested in seeing Emily Ducote sign with the UFC for a while now. Of course, she's already got big show experience. She fought for Invicta. She won a world title. She fought for Bellator. She challenged at the highest level. She's been there, done that. So for somebody that's debuting, she's almost got 20 pro fights. She had 6 amateur fights. She wrestled at Oklahoma City University. She was a state runner-up in high school her senior year. She can wrestle. She's a Taekwondo black belt. She can strike. As you mentioned, the highlight reel KO over Danielle Taylor. She's got power, and this division doesn't really show a whole lot of power. And beyond all that, she's a a BJJ black belt under Giuliana Galuppi, who's a BJJ black belt under Ricardo Laborio, right? She spent a lot of time in Oklahoma with Rafael Lovato, and she recently just got awarded her own BJJ black belt like 2 months ago. So I don't even think if this fight hits the ground, she's really going to be that much of a fish out of the water. Whereas Jessica Penne has gotten by on the Lupita Godinez fight, she should have lost, right? She got outstruck. Yeah. She did get taken down, but it was her ability to sling to the back, throw the body triangle in, and control the position. I understand this is mixed martial arts. It's a 10-point must system. Like, you can game the system. She gamed the system. But it wasn't like she looked particularly good. It was her first fight off a 3-year-long layoff due to USADA suspension. And again, got the win. That was cool, but didn't look great doing so. Then the Carolina fight, as you mentioned, Carolina just takes her down, falls on top of her, and gets armbarred. Like, what a bonehead decision. Emily, meanwhile, she's big, she's strong, she's rugged, she has a striking advantage, she has a wrestling advantage. And even though Jessica Penne might be on paper be the better grappler, I don't think the discrepancy is all that big. So sprawl and brawler, but if you want to take her down, if you want to mix in a little bit of ground and pound, I think she'll be able to get away with doing it. Now, as you mentioned, she's been on a little bit of a roll lately. So what's changed? Well, I'll tell you what's changed, right? Look at her career. She hits this 3-fight losing streak with Bellator, right? The last one versus Veta Ortega, 125. Christina Williams, 125. Ilya McFarland, both times she fought her, 125. All of her fights in Bellator, 125 pounds. She drops down to 115, and she shows a 5-1 record, the lone loss being a 5-rounder versus Kanako Murata, split decision, Invicta FC title fight. And for the record, Kanako Murata, former junior, she was a junior world champion for Japan in freestyle wrestling, right? So a good wrestler, a UFC veteran, a quality fighter, maybe not a great fighter, but a quality wrestler and grappler in her own right. It's a tough fight, right? 115 pounds. I think you're seeing the absolute best versions of Ducote. Now you're seeing her bigger, stronger, more filled out. She has advantages over Penne in every realm. It's women's MMA. It's going to find a way to bite me in the ass. But I'm going to bite the bullet on this one. I'm going to take that Ducote by decision at plus 160, plus 165, and I think it honestly looks good to me.
I like it. I'm glad that we're on the same spot here, especially with the first fight of the night, just to get that confidence right off the bat here. All right.
Emily Ducote is 11 years younger than Jessica Penne, for the record. Like, that's got to count for something. Like, I understand when it's the old grizzled war dog of the division, but it's Jessica Penne, man. Like, god damn. So, anyways, let's move on.
Is she gonna get a 3-fight winning streak going here, do you think? But
yeah, she's gonna take her back and throw a body triangle in and cling on for dear life. And even though her big nose is gonna be shattered to the side and there's gonna be blood spilling out of it, the judges are gonna be like, "Well, control time." Like, I know it. I got the malarkey decision last week. Like, something this week is gonna get me, and this is probably
something's gonna even it out.
The good thing is it's the first fight on the card, so you could rebuild.
Exactly. All right, let us move on to the next fight here. We got a middleweight fight here between Dwight Grant and Dustin Stoltzfus. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 130 on Dwight Grant and plus 110 the return on Dustin Stoltzfus. Now, the interesting thing is here, Dwight Grant actually started off as a minus 165 favorite. A ton of money coming in on Dustin Stoltzfus to bring that fight even closer. Now, I wouldn't even be surprised to see it end up as a pick'em by fight time. But considering the style of Dwight Grant, it's very difficult to back him at chalk, right? The guy's very low volume, doesn't really look to, engage and look to be a minute winner at many points in his fights. Mainly looks for the knockout, and that usually, just puts him behind on the scorecards. He's almost reliant to go out there and get the finish. The Stefan Sekulic split decision win that he had at UFC 261, I thought that was a bad decision. I thought Sekulic won that fight, you know what I mean? And he barely squeaked that one out there. But like his last 2 fights, decision loss to Francisco Trinaldo, and then it seems like his durabilities might start to be deteriorating as got knocked out in his last fight by Sergey Gandochko. Now he's deciding to go up at 185 pounds at 37 years old. It's always better that, these older guys decide to go up rather than down, because you feel like it'll be better for their health and at least their durability. So we'll see if that holds up here against Dustin Stoltzfus. But I still think that Stoltzfus is the side here, as flaky as this guy can be, right? When you have a loss to Rodolfo Vieira in round 3, not a good look, right? From the outside.
What? That's not a good look? That was, he was grappling with the best guy in the planet for like 10 minutes. You got to give him credit for that.
But I'm saying, like, to for a guy that, like, at least the narrative on Rodolfo Vieira is like, he's like first round
guess they're
or
striking
under round and
in a
one,
bum
1.5
fight.
rounds, and he could possibly get it done. But we need more data on Rodolfo Vieira to truly say whether that's
Sure.
a good thing or not. We saw it in the Chris Curtis fight, right? He went the full 50 minutes against Chris Curtis, so maybe that's a tip to the cap to him there. But even in the Gerald Mearshart fight, wins 10 minutes of that fight and slows down in the third round, and then gets finished by Gerald Mearshart. Back-to-back fights where he gives up third round finishes to his opponent. But this feels like a spot where he can go out there and just out grapple Dwight Grant. Just use that, use his ability to be the stronger guy and the more comfortable guy at 185 pounds against Dwight Grant. In terms of size, Dwight Grant still has a 1-inch height advantage as well as a 1-inch reach advantage on him. But Dustin Stoltzfus has just been like grappling and mangling with these guys who are much bigger than him or much bigger than Dwight Grant on a regular basis. I think he has the grappling advantage, so he could probably take down Dwight Grant and grind him out here. But that third round fumbling the bag, Stoltzfus always kind of just lingers in the back of my head that he might just find himself getting knocked into orbit by Dwight Grant the later that this fight goes. But again, Dwight Grant, a lot of his success comes earlier in fights. If Stoltzfus can kind of nullify that early success by making this a grappling fight, by clinching up with him, taking him down and using his strength and his size against him, I think it'll be easier for Stoltzfus to grind this out the later that it goes. I'm not expecting a Dwight Grant Dar's choke or something like that in the third round, or him getting the back and getting a rear naked choke by any means. But I do think that Stoltzfus is the side here on the money line. He's the more active fighter. He actually looks like he wants to go out there and win compared to Dwight Grant. Just looks out like he's out there on a Sunday morning taking a stroll. Give me the Stoltzfus side. Give me Stoltzfus by decision as well, which currently sits at plus 330. That is the exact same number that I got on Romanov by decision last week. So maybe I got to keep that plus 330 line continuing here. I'm going to go Stoltzfus by decision. As long as the durability of Dwight Grant hasn't truly dwindled, I'm just going to say that Kondoshko fight was a bit of an anomaly, but he is 37, 38 years old. He's getting up there in age. At what point does that durability completely start to decline? I'm still going Stoltzfus by decision. What about yourself, Cody?
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. I hit it on Wednesday. It's a good little underdog pick for the simple fact that I would never bet at any point would you bet Dwight Grant as the favorite, right? He's had his opportunities. He doesn't got it. Dude has a win over Algeo, and that's credible. That means something. Unfortunately, he's so bang or bust. Like, he's got big power, but no volume. All of his fights, the Zach Otto fight, this is a 15-minute fight. He lands 25. The Jourdain fight itself, he lands 38. The Stefan Sekulic, 49. These are all 15-minute fights. Trinaldo fight, 31. My God, it's just very low output, right? Now, what he does have is big power, right? You don't necessarily see it all the time because he doesn't throw his hands enough to actually land that big power, but he does have that big power. But now imagine moving up to 185 pounds. You're taking away a lot of that power from him, right? The power that you might have as a welterweight is not going to translate over to 185 pounds the same way that a guy at 185 pounds wouldn't translate his massive power over to 205. Only guy that it translates for is Melvin Manhoff. He can fight you at heavyweight or middleweight. Dude hits. But these regular guys, yeah, it's going to take its toll on him. That was the only one weapon he had, besides that he doesn't have the low volume. But here's a low-key way better stat for you, is that Dwight Grant has had 8 UFC fights. He got taken down in 6 of those 8 UFC fights. He's been taken down in his last 3. He's been taken down a combined 5 times over his last 3. These guys that are taking him down are Sergey Kangoshko, a one-dimensional Russian Muay Thai fighter. He got taken down by Stefan Sekulic 3 times. He got taken down by Carlos Pedersoli. He got taken down by Zach Otto, who's already shot to bits by the time he fought him. None of these guys are particularly great wrestlers, and I'm not saying that Stoltzfus is, but check out his entries in that Mearshart fight. Dude knows how to wrestle. He's also low-key a Planet Eater BJJ brown belt from Germany, so like he's adequate. He's originally born in Pennsylvania, wrestled in high school. He's not good, but like he knows what he's doing in there. And his back is definitely against the wall because he knows 100% he's cut if he loses this. And I think Dwight realizes that as well. But you said it best yourself. Like, he doesn't seem interested. The Kandoshko fight, it looked like he was finally letting his hands go, but that's because Kandoshko is forcing him to fight. But then he ended up getting knocked out. So is he going to come out and look to fight again this time, or is he going to come out conservative again? I just couldn't trust him. I can never trust him. I can never trust him, especially as the favorite. And he shows a split decision, lost to Francisco Trinaldo. Don't be fooled by that. He lost. He should have been unanimous. Like, he didn't do shit. He has a tendency to not do shit. And then for favorite status, I just can't get behind it. I made the joke to Paul. I was like, it's been working out for me. So 2 weeks ago, I was like, Alan Bodo's the favorite, and I couldn't do it. Can't do it. It's just like, as a principle, I can't do it. So you go the other side and you get the job done. And then last week it was Jared Vandera. It was like, Jared Vandera is the favorite. I just can't do it. And so I'm getting the exact same vibes out of this one. Dwight Grant, not trustworthy anymore. Doesn't have the volume. The power, I don't think, is going to translate at 185. And I don't think his takedown defense is all that good. So I think Stoltzfus will exploit it en route to a decision victory. Plus 330. Good price tag.
I love it. I love it. Again, 2 fights right off the jump here that me and Cody agree upon. Hopefully it lines up come fight time. Speaking of fight time, we got another one coming up here, and it's probably the most debated fight of the week. Very much looking forward to Cody's thoughts on this, but we got a 205-pound fight between Dustin Jacoby and Da Un Jung. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 125 on the Korean fighter and plus 105 on the Hanyak, Dustin Jacoby. Very interesting line here too, right? It opened up as a pick'em. We saw money come in on the Dustin Jacoby side right off the jump, and then sharp action bringing that fight back down, and even all the way to the Da Un Jung side where he's the slight favorite in this spot. Very interesting in terms of line movement there. I had a lot of people hit me up in regards to my thoughts on this fight, and I took my sweet time studying up on this fight because I wanted to make sure I got it right, considering how highly debated it was. And I came out on the Dustin Jacoby side here, right? I think he is the more refined striker, the better technical striker. And the one thing I love about him, obviously the weakness in his game has got to be his grappling, considering his striking background. But everything we've seen with his grappling shows that he's been working on it defensively a lot, right? He when he does get taken down, he's never settles. He gets right back to his feet, looking to fight the hands, dig his underhooks, and get back into space. And even when guys are shooting takedowns, he seems pretty privy to them and does a good job in terms of framing with his arms, framing with his head, and even getting his butt back as far as possible, and just trying to, keep his hips out of play, which you usually need to try to get your opponents down. Da Un Jung, he turned into Da Un Nurmagomedov Jung, or whatever you want to call him, against William Knight, where he just landed takedown after takedown in that fight, and William Knight could do nothing about it, as he pretty much gave him the hips every single time, right? There's even times where William Knight was the one engaging in the clinch. We see Da Un Jung get that over-under, get that far side trip, or even just does a toss of his own with the upper body alone, and he just showed that he was probably the stronger man that night. But it was the same takedown over and over again. It seemed that he was able to hit on William Knight. He hit 8 takedowns that night, controlled that fight for a total of 12 minutes as well. He did hit a sneaky double leg in the beginning of that third round against William Knight, but if you think he's going to hit that against Dustin Jacoby, I think you're a little bit out of sorts here. You got to mix in the William Knight cardio deficit that he was at in that third round. Obviously, Da Un Jung was going to be able to close that distance and drag it to the ground. Whereas with Dustin Jacoby, you see him working the range and trying to keep his distance and try to telegraph, or at least see when that takedown attempt is coming from his opponent. And I think he does a really good job in terms of seeking that out. Now, a lot of people want to give him some shit for that Iwan Cutelaba fight where he got taken down 9 times. But watch back that fight. He got taken down 8 times in the first round, but a lot of those were just mat returns, right? There wasn't really any getting back out into space and Iwan Cutelaba entering in on a single leg or a double leg and getting those takedowns. A lot of it was just mat returns. He just held on to that body lock, and Dustin Jacoby just showed time and time again he was able to get back to his feet and really nullified that success from Cutelaba in that first round. Then second and third round, we obviously saw him go out there and just pitter-patter Iwan Cutelaba from the outside. It was a draw ultimately, and I guess there is a good enough case for that. But I do like how Jacoby started to distance himself the later that fight went and really start to pick him apart with the numbers. Da Un Jung struggling with guys that are better strikers than him. Sure, he's a great, solid boxer with big power, and that obviously matters in these higher weight classes when the power translates a lot more than it does in the lower weight classes. So sure, he's absolutely possible to ding Jacoby here and put him down. But I think that as this fight starts to drag on, we're going to see Jacoby really use that length, really use that teep up the middle, that front kick, flashing that high knee, and just using his distance and really keeping Da Un Jung on the outside. Round 1 is going to be tough, without a doubt, just as his last fight was tough in that first round against Mihailo Algeo. But he threw almost no kicks in that fight, and it comes out after the fight that he injured his foot or something, which is why he was not able to throw kicks there. He's going to need his kicks here. He's going to need to keep that distance, as Jung is definitely durable and hard to put away, not to mention hits like a ton of bricks in that first round. But if he can get out of that first round, I think we see Jacoby really start to run away with it. And last thing I'll say about this, and I'll flip it on over to you. If people are banking on Da Union to go out there and replicate that William Knight performance, I think they're going to be sorely mistaken considering the get-ups and the takedown defense that we actually see from Dustin Jacoby here, not to mention the cardio. We know the Hanyak training in Colorado has that gas tank to go the full 50 minutes if he needs to. He's shown it time and time again, and I think he's going to show it here once again. So I'm going to go Jacoby, and I'm actually going to go Jacoby by decision, as I do think that he'll outpoint Jung at least in the second or third rounds and take this home. So plus 240 for Jacoby by decision. Sign me up. Where do you land in this fight, Cody? There's a lot of talk about this fight, so I'm very interested to hear where your thoughts are for this one.
I can see it going either way. I flip-flop a little bit back and forth, and I think you can make a strong case, but I'm going to lean towards the Da Young side, and I think that low-key, greasy, plus 260, I think he might get it done by knockout. So a couple things with Dustin Jacoby's. One, I don't think he's all that trustworthy. The guy's got a lot of MMA fights. He's fought at heavyweight. He's fought at middleweight. He's fought everywhere in between. He fought for Glory Kickboxing. He fought Simon Marcus twice. Like, he's been there, done that, but his body's all beaten up, and so I can't get behind him to consistently go out there and deliver. As you mentioned, there was a spot where the Mikhailo Alekchek fight where he hurts his leg and his body's a little banged up. Prior to that, look at all these fights, okay? He got banged up by Mikhailo Alekchek. The first round, he loses. The second round, Mikhailo Alekchek gasses, as he always does, and then the fight gets greasy, gets sloppy. He gets hit a ton, though. Right, the John Allen fight. John Allen ended up going 0-4 in the UFC and got released. Was known more of a grappler, and they just sat there and threw down. But John Allen cracked him good on a couple of occasions. People forget the Maxim Grishin fight. He got dropped twice by Maxim Grishin, outstruck, and robbed him by decision. Of course, the Kudalaba fight, he gave up 9 takedowns in that spot. So, yeah, I know he's getting back up and he's all this and that, but like I just can't really trust him. The other thing with Dong Jung, and I know the Sam Alvey spot is like the lone, like real dark one, but I'll give him this. He knocks out Mike Rodriguez in the first round with that sneaky right hand. It was like, damn, this dude's got some power, right? Like Mike Rodriguez, most guys go out there and try to out-grapple him and grind him down. Like that's the path to victory. But no, he shows some great power there. William Knight, Thick Willie, now competes as like a 250-pound heavyweight. I get he's just going outside trip every single time, but he's muscling a big guy to the ground and have some success doing so. But it's that last fight with Kenji Ku. Kenji Ku is not that bad, serviceable. He took an absolute beating from Carlos Ulberg, took all of his best shots, and came back. For the record, Carlos Ulberg, not that bad. But Da Jung touches him up and he puts him away. Kid's 28 years old. He's only improving. He's getting comfortable. He's got good technical boxing. And Jacoby likes to throw kicks, which opens him up to counters. I think Da Jung could touch him. And if he does, there's a good chance he puts him away. You also mentioned Jacoby's got that cardio and he trains at elevation. Yeah, he can fight 15 minutes. But he generally doesn't cruise through 15 minutes. He generally gets tired, puts his guard down, gets hit with some shots that he shouldn't be getting hit with. And for that reason, I think Dong Jung's going to have some success. The last thing is that it's in the big cage, I believe. They are fighting in the big cage in Long Island. And Jacoby loves fighting from the outside, using that rangy kickboxing, using his kicks, and he's using it very effectively, right? The reason why he's so effective from fighting well with his kickboxing from the outside is he's got like a 76-inch reach. He's got a big old reach on him, right? He fights well long. Where Dong Jung's got a 78.5-inch reach, got a huge reach on him. He's good at getting to the target. Slow Mike Rodriguez has got an 80-inch reach on him, but as he got there, it's like, boom, this guy's sneaky with his hands. I think he's going to hit him. I think he's going to put him away. Now, listen, it's plus 260. It seems like a far cry, and I get it. It's a close fight. It could go either way, but like I think I'm going to lean towards the Dong Jung side here.
Yeah, glad that we actually get to see both sides of the coin here, right? That's where a lot of people kind of really tune into these shows for to just see, the opposition and the arguments going back and forth. And I do agree with what you are saying. There are big power concerns on the Da Eun-Young side, especially if Jacoby wants to try to tread on the outside and win this fight over 15 minutes. But yeah, this, in my opinion, this is the perfect example of power versus technique. At 205, either side is live. So we'll see how it pans out here. I'm going Jacoby. My guy Cody is going to stick with the Korean fighter and go with Da Eun-Young. All right, let us move on to the next fight here. Interesting fight at 145 pounds. We got Bill Algeo going up against Herbert Burns. In terms of odds, we got minus 205 for Bill Algeo, plus 175 the return for Herbert Burns. Now, the last time we saw Herbert Burns inside the cage, he fumbled the bag as a minus 300 favorite against Daniel Pineda. Luckily, I was on the Pineda side that night. I just felt like Pineda was getting way too disrespected. We saw Burns do everything to get Pineda out of there in the first round, ultimately paying for it with his gas tank, you know, screwing him over later in this fight. And we saw Pineda get that second round finish with elbows from the crucifix position. So big win for Pineda that night. But Burns has been trying to get back in the cage for the last 2 years. Finally gets his chance here against Bill Algeo. On the flip side for Algeo, coming off a win over Joe Anderson Brito, where he was able to outpoint his way to victory there, using his movement, using his rangy style, and just using his output from the outside to really give Joe Anderson Brito some issues. Brito did land a couple takedowns that night, just wasn't enough to actually hold down and control Algeo long enough so that he could actually get the victory that night. Algeo did land a couple takedowns of his own, and that was very impressive to see him get close to 5 minutes of control time against Brito. But that just goes to show how he's a very good overall fighter, like a very good MMA fighter where he puts everything together pretty well. Now, in terms of the UFC, he's 2-2 with his record, right? He's traded wins and losses with guys like Ricardo Lamas, Spike Carlisle, Ricardo Ramos, and Joe Anderson Brito. Where does Herbert Burns fit in that slot, right? I do think it's closer to the Brito side than it is to the Lamas and Ramos side, which is why I do ultimately pick the Algeo side. But I'm just a little bit sketched out by his price tag, like -200. Yes, he should win this fight. Yes, he's probably the better overall fighter. And yes, his durability should allow him to not get finished early in this fight where Herbert Burns, which is, the vast majority of success in Burns' fight is getting that early finish. But if he can't get it here against Algeo, either Burns gasses out and we can get a late Algeo finish, or Algeo just outpoints him and wins this fight over 15 minutes. And that's kind of the side that I'm leaning on, with Algeo taking this fight, outpointing Burns, surviving that early onslaught. Again, it's totally on him. Is he going to be able to pick up the pace and try to finish Burns later in this fight? Or is he content with just like eking this one out and winning this and grinding it out over 15 minutes and winning by decision? So I do lean Algeo by decision at +180. But, the more that I think about it, the more comfortable I get with Algeo at this price tag. I think a lot of people are just skeptical about it, considering that Burns was a -300 favorite last time around. But I also think that's just a bunch of recency bias with him getting a ton of first-round finishes, the crowd being very hot on him, the public being very hot on him, and then just completely disregarding what Daniel Pineda brought to the table that night. And I think they paid for it that night. So I'll go Algeo. I'll go Algeo via decision. Yeah. What about yourself? Are you in agreement here?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. So if you're thinking about betting the money line, my suggestion to you would be bet it after the first round, and you can get a much better price on Bill Algeo, because Herbert Burns is going to come out hot for the first 3 minutes. He'll probably have a good first round. And let's be honest here, Bill Algeo's takedown defense, he's not so good. So he probably does take him down earlier. But I agree with all your points. I think he'll stretch him out to the second and third round. He'll show he's got durability, and surviving long enough to tire Herbert Burns and put it on him will be fine. Now, what if Herbert Burns gasses out and gets finished again? Well, I'm going to say not going to happen, only because Bill Algeo is not a finisher. You show all of his wins. I mean, he's more of a decision guy. He can put up huge volume on you, just doesn't really seem to have that big fight-ending power. As far as the submission goes, I don't see him submitting Herbert Burns. So, maybe take it off the table. That being said, like, his own durability is excellent. He hasn't been finished since a 2014 rear naked choke to Shane Burgos, but since then, 8 years later, he's been awarded his own BJJ black belt. He's a decision guy. He's got a great chin on him. When he does get taken down, he works his way back up, and I think is something that'll pay dividends. So if you're thinking about betting money line, -200 on Bill Algeo straight up doesn't sound great. You'll probably get a better price tag after the first round. In terms of if you love Bill Algeo that much, I think you go with the Bill Algeo by decision. Now, people could also point back to the fact and be like, oh, man, look how bad he gassed out in his last fight, Herbert Burns did, and, he gets TKO'd, and it's a bad spot for him. That's fair, but people don't realize is that he took that Daniel Pineda fight on 2 weeks, and then he missed weight by 4 pounds. So, like, he knew I'm in bad shape, and I've got 1 round to put this guy away, and went at him hard for 1 round. When he failed to do so, not so much the case. Now he's been off for 2 years. Wait for weigh-ins. Weigh-ins is today. It's Friday. So check him out. And if he looks good to you and you makes the weight comfortably, yeah, you look good to you. I missed it. I got a wiener dog race coming up today. Yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable with how he made weight, like maybe he's plausibly going to come out here and fight for a strong 6 or 7 minutes, but in literally all of his fights, it's the same thing. He needs to finish you early or he crumbles apart. That's not just a UFC thing. That's his entire career. Look at all of his wins, okay? So his wins: Evan Dunham, minute 20 of the first round. Nate Landwehr, early in the first round. He got lucky. Nate ran his own face into that God damn it. Derek Minner, first round. Luis Gomez, first round. This Albek Nursic guy, you know, midway through the second round. Timofey Natsugukin and won the championship, first round. Honoro Benario, first round. Like his last 8 wins, 7 of them in the first round, 1 of them in the second round. His losses, decision, and Pineda stretched him out and was able to put him away in the second. Bill needs to stretch him out and I don't think put him away, but win the second and the third round. So that's where I stand on this one. The best spot, though, because you're asking me the best spot. This could be a greasy fight. I think the best spot is the fight does go the distance at plus 110. Like if I think if Bill wins, he's going to overcome a bad first round and then win the second and the third round and win a decision. He's a decision guy. I could see him doing it. If Herbert wins, yeah, he's got some great submission game, but I don't think he's submitting Bill Algeo. For the record, Bill Algeo's been in there with multiple black belts at the UFC level, right? He Ricardo Ramos, black belt. Joanderson Brito, black belt. Ricardo Lamas, black belt. Even prior to that, he's got fights on the regional scene. Jared Gordon. Well, Jared Gordon would have been a brown belt at the time. But like he's been in there and he's grappled high-level guys, and they haven't been able to finish him. He took the Ricardo Lamas fight on a week's notice, and Lamas is a former title challenger, former collegiate wrestler, BJJ black belt, Taekwondo black belt, and he survived that one. Like I don't think he's getting put away here. So if he wins, decision. If he loses, decision. And the decision props plus 110. So that's where I feel the best about it.
I like it. Yeah, to get plus money on that as well. And again, I did kind of suffer for it when I took Bill Algeo and Spike Carlisle to go under 2.5. I really expected Algeo to, you know, turn it up in those later rounds, as Spike Carlisle has been
Spike's durable at
slow
times.
down, right? But like again, yeah, Algeo couldn't turn it on enough to get him out of there. And same thing might end up happening here with Burns being at full all systems go, essentially, especially considering what his weigh-in looked like. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, plus 110, fight goes to decision. Sharp call there. I'm going Algeo via decision. I believe you're going Algeo via decision as well, correct?
Yes. All
right. Let us move on to another highly talked about fight on this card. A lot of people shitting on where it is placed on the card, but the hardcores are going to be all over this. We got a bantamweight fight between 16-0 Jack Shore going up against 19-3 Ricky Simone, minus 150 on the Welsh fighter and plus 130 the return on Ricky Simone. Now, when I first heard this fight get announced, I literally thought we were going to get a pick'em fight here. I thought it was going to be minus 110 both sides. Ricky Simone, very strong wrestling background, as we know. Jack Shore, unstoppable, essentially, right? 16-0, been looking very good in his UFC career as well. But then, you know, I see the line here and I'm like, oh, I just might have to make a bet on Ricky Simone. Like, it seems like he is the value here at underdog odds. But when you really start to run the tape, like, Jack Shore's takedown defense is pretty damn good. 88% takedown defense, not to mention does a very good job in terms of nullifying any type of success his opponents try to have from that top position. Does a good job with, throwing up submissions, staying active off of his back, but also in terms of working back to his feet, getting back to his feet and trying to either impose his own grappling, which is usually his key to victory in most fights, or that improving striking game that we're seeing where, you know, it's really kick heavy, but he does like to throw his strikes out there. Not as uncomfortable as you would assume, especially when you watch most of this guy's tape, because a lot of it is surrounded with him taking his opponents to the ground and kind of just smashing them through the mat. Ricky Simone, he has that wrestling style of striking, right? The big overhand hooks, the big overhand right, closes distance pretty well in terms of his speed. But it does seem as though in terms of cardio, the advantage is going to be on the Shore side here, as he can go that full 15 without really breaking a sweat. Ricky Simone, decent cardio in his own right, but it depends on the pace of the fight. If it's a scramble fest and we're getting, you know, these guys going back and forth, I could see him start to slow down later in this fight, and Shore could probably take over in round 3. We saw it in the Ray Borg fight a little bit. I think Ray Borg did get the third round on most judges' scorecards, as he seemed to be the slightly fresher guy, landing the better damage that night. But I'm just wondering if Jack Shore, like, wrestling wise, this is going to be the biggest opposition he's faced, right? Ricky Simone is definitely the best wrestler he's faced at this point in time. And for some reason, the fight that keeps coming back to mind is Danny Sabatello versus Brett Johns in Bellator a couple months ago, right? Similar situation, Welsh wrestler going up against an American wrestler. But I think what Danny Sabatello has been showing us is that he might even be a better wrestler than Ricky Simone in terms of being able to implement his grappling and control guys and really make it a lopsided spot. I still lean on the Ricky Simone side here. I do think he will be the stronger guy, and even if he doesn't end up getting the takedowns, I think he could find enough control time up against the cage, clinching Jack Shore up against the cage, and kind of pinning him up there, getting some control time there, and maybe some damage. And again, Jack Shore's striking, although I do think it is the better here. Of the two, I do think that Ricky Simone can still, knock his head back a couple times, land some good damage, and then mix that with the control time that I believe he's going to get. He could probably squeak this one out. So, in terms of a specific prop, I do like Simone by decision at plus 200. How can you not, right? Like, that's the majority of times how he wins his fight. Outside of the one time I finally betted against Rafael Sunset when he knocks out Sunset in the last fight. But more often than not, you're going to get Ricky Simone by decision when he steps inside the cage. The other spot, if you are a little bit hesitant in terms of the side, fight goes to decision at minus 190 is not too bad for two guys that are primarily grapplers, very high level guys. And Cody, we talk about this every single goddamn week. As you take steps up in competition, as you fight better and better guys, it gets harder and harder to finish these guys. And I think if Ricky Simone didn't knock out Rafael Sunsa last time around and just grinded him out over 15 minutes, this line will be closer to minus 300, minus 350. So yeah, I'm going to lean the Simone side. I'm going to lean the fight goes to decision. Intrigued to hear about your thoughts here. You like the dog or the favorite, the Welsh fighter?
Yeah, I like Jack Shore, but again, this is a close fight. When the line a couple days ago was minus 170 Jack Shore, I was like, I don't know why it's this wide. But now it's minus 150. You see money coming in on Ricky Simone, and I agree with it, right? I think it's a closely contested fight in the sense that you got two guys going out there and wrestling, and how's it going to shake up? Jack Shore has been able to go out there and dominate every guy he's faced, but it's, a limited pint-sized portion of guys, Ludovic Shalinian. Like, is this a big win for him? Aaron Phillips, oh man, taking him down 4 times. Is that impressive? Ricky Simone, I think he's fought a little bit of a higher level. He puts up takedowns against everybody. Dude's fought the likes of Merab Dvalishvili and took Merab down twice and robbed him. I thought it was a bullshit stoppage, but got a win over Merab Dvalishvili by submission. Like, well, not submission. He technically choked him unconscious. Cardio generally looks good. I know you said it maybe not excellent, but very good. And I agree with that. I think he can push a pace. I think he's got a grinding style. I think he's been working a lot on his striking. I think he's got a lot of good, variables to him. But sometimes in this game, you just got to go with that gut feeling, right? And the gut feeling here is that Jack Shore is going to knock him out, which is plus 575. So it's a big price tag. I think it's something that's very plausible to happen. And let me explain my case. So first and foremost, why would Ricky Simone be getting knocked out? I'll tell you why Ricky Simone be getting knocked out. First time he lost, I actually lost money on this fight. It was a Titan FC fight against Anderson Dos Santos, who eventually made it to the UFC and then fanned out. And he's a big favorite over Anderson Dos Santos. He's this good-looking prospect out of Oregon. And Dos Santos absolutely clubs him, rocks him, chokes him out. Anderson Dos Santos, not known for his punching power, but he absolutely had him just out of this world and then choked him out. Official result would be a submission victory, but he had him rocked. So then later, Ricky Simone makes the UFC, and for the most part, he's been able to grind up against, lesser competition than him. And then all of a sudden, he's this massive favorite against Uriah Faber, who's coming out of retirement, who's in his 40s, who just clean clocks him with a right hand and knocks him out. Incredible. But what it does show you is that Ricky Simone doesn't have much of a chin. It's that next fight with Rob Font, right? So if you want to look at the numbers, you'll see, geez, he took Rob Font down 6 times. But if you watch the fight, you'll see that he went 6 for 16 in takedowns. Not only that, of those 6 takedowns, he got a little over 3 minutes of control time in 15 minutes. Not good numbers. He might have wrestling, but doesn't have the top game. So maybe he's a slightly better than Jack Shore. Maybe not. But maybe he is. If he doesn't get the takedown, Shore's just going to get back up. Now, when Shore is back up, he's going to be hitting him. And when he hits him, he's going to hurt him. Because 1, Ricky Simone don't got a great chin. And 2, Jack Shore's got some sneaky power. Again, if you look on his Tapology, you'll see, wow, he hasn't really knocked out anybody out since his Cage Warriors days, but he's got big power. He's got finishing ability. He's got great cardio, and he's got an ability to translate power in the first round, second round, and third round. Carry it. The Timur Valiev fight has him on skates twice. Almost gets a 10-8 round in the third because he's just thrashing on the guy. Put that kind of pace on, stuff the takedowns, work your way back up, keep him at range, touch him up. The KO victory will present itself. And at plus 575, I'm willing to take a little sniff there. So that's what I think I'm going to go with.
I don't mind that. I like the case for Jack Shore there as well. A prop, thanks to Cloudbet, that's available to you guys. And I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Cody. Most takedowns landed in this fight. Jack Shore at minus 130 or Ricky Simone at plus 110. Where are you leaning there?
I think I'm going to lean towards Jack Shore, but we had this conversation on Wednesday. The thing with Ricky Simone is that he'll give up takedowns to get takedowns. So I know Cloudbet was offering, so many the over under on a certain amount of takedowns. Like you look at all of them, he took down Donovan Freelo 14 times, but he got taken down. Marab took him down 6 times, but he got 2. The Montel Jackson fight, they combined for 9 takedowns. Took down all of them. Rob Font took him down 1 for 1. Rob Font went 1 for 1. Ricky went 6 for 16. Keep that in mind. A lot of the times it's just when you're engaging in these like tough like wrestling scrambles, you'll give up a takedown to get a takedown. The main thing is that this is just going to be a scramble match. A good example was what you brought up with the pikey Brett Johns in his fight with Danny Sabatello, where it's like Sabatello just leg laces him and controls him, just dominates. But just look at 2 fights back against Tony Gravely. What a fight that was. They're just scrambling the entire time. You see great wrestling on both sides. They scramble until Gravely tires out, and Brett the Pikey Johns is able to take over. I see this being much of the same thing. Maybe a takedown hits, but the scramble will happen, and then they'll get back up. Who's going to hit more of those takedowns offensively? I would say I'm going to say Jack Shore. I got him to win. I think he gets the job done. I think once he hurts Ricky, Ricky's going to go into defensive wrestling mode, and that should open up his opportunities for Shore. And I think Shore's got more of a sneaky little foot sweep game that he can employ. So if he gets all that going, maybe he edges him out in the takedown department. But again, for me, the key to victory is not try to take down Ricky Simone and out-grapple him. It's stuff the takedown, box this guy up, and knock him out.
That reasoning alone, what you said last there, is kind of why I'm going to be leaning on the Ricky Simone side for the most takedowns there. I think he's going to be the one that's more pushed to get takedowns to find success in this fight. And even if he doesn't, even if he's not successful in terms of holding Jack Shore down, that presents more opportunities for him to land even more takedowns. And how confident is Jack Shore going to be in there to go, takedown for takedown against the guy in Ricky Simone, who technically might be the better wrestler, but we know that Shore has the advantage in the striking in this fight. So what's his, his level of interest in going out there to look for takedowns? Where is that going to be when he knows that he can just go out there and ding up Ricky Simone on the feet? So in terms of that prop, I'll go Ricky Simone plus 110. Not too bad of a spot. You want to add?
No, not really. But I got thinking to myself, you know what? They're not scoring cage control these days. So even if Ricky Simone can't get the takedown, press him up against the cage, I'm going to get the judges not scoring it for Ricky Simone. And we're in Long Island, bro. The bros are going to be in full effect. They're going to be like, boo, bro, what the fuck is this, bro? They're going to get some separations. Jack Shore is going to get some stands up. Club, plus 575. KO prop comes through. So, anyways, yeah, we can't agree on all of them. And so far, I'm going with the gut feeling. I think Jung's going to clip him and put the power to good use, right? You disagree? Totally fine. Totally fine. This is another case. It's like plus 575, people are clearly overlooking it. But I think it's got a good chance to hit.
We shall see how it goes. But next up, we got a middleweight fight. We got Penne Soriano taking on Dalcha Lungiambula. In terms of odds, we got minus 225 on Pune and plus 190 the return on Dalcha Lungiambula. This is one of those fights that has me scratch my head, Cody, because you can either get a firefight in round 1 or you can get a very sloppy fight that goes the full 15 minutes. And that's pretty much what you're in store for every time Penne Soriano steps inside the cage. Now, and a stat that I found very interesting, out of the, 11 fights? Let me get this stat here correct. Out of the 10 fights in Penne Soriano's career, only 3 of them have reached round 2, and they've all gone to a decision. So it seems like as soon as he gets out of round 1, he, his power starts to diminish. It doesn't really give him the advantage that it normally does. And that's where his opponents are able to take over in that second and third round. Although he does have that decision victory over Jamie Pickett on the Contender Series, we do see him get grinded out by Brendan Allen and Nick Maximov in his last fight. So
he gassed against Jamie Pickett in the third round too. Like his
still
cardio,
won.
Yeah, he won because Ali manages him. He got a contract, but he didn't look good at all as far as I was concerned.
Even with Dalcha though, right? Like he's a guy that can bring big power early in fights. But if you look back at his EFC days, he's won a couple 5-round decision victories with him just going out there and grappling his opponents to the ground, right? He might not have the technical wrestling advantage here over Pune, but all that stuff is thrown out the window the deeper that this fight goes. And for some reason, that's kind of where I'm leaning, man. I do think this fight goes the full 15 minutes, which is kind of my favorite prop on this fight. The over 1.5 is currently sitting at -165, but even the fight to go to decision is currently sitting around +150, which I don't mind, man. +150, +160, depending on where you're looking at it. And especially if this fight reaches the second round, right? I think Puna is durable enough that he could survive to the last bell. I think Dalcha will be durable enough to see this fight reach the 15-minute mark. Now, for some reason, I thought Dalcha Lungiambula was like 39 years old. He's only 34. So he's not like as old as most people are making him sound. Obviously, Puna is going to have the slight youth advantage here, being the 29-year-old. He'll be 30 in November. I still lean Puna. I do think that he'll probably get the better of Dalcha in his first 2 rounds, maybe control it a little bit better, maybe land a knockdown in that first round. I think he'll be the slightly faster guy earlier in this fight. But man, I see this fight getting sloppy after that first round, and it's going to come down to who's going to be able to dig deeper. I think Puna's been in that situation more recently where he's like, I don't want to feel this again, and he's probably been training for that. And then on the flip side for Dalcha, again, he's had 5-round performances earlier in his early in his professional MMA career, but I think it's starting to drop off as he gets into his UFC career, and even trying to change his fortune by changing camps like he did before his second last fight, going down to Killcliff FC. I don't think it's really been working out for him, though, especially that fight that he had against Cody Brundage. Had Brundage on skates at certain parts of that fight, but Brundage showing that he can just pull a rabbit out of his ass when he needs to, and he ends up getting the win there. So I'll lean Puna via decision, but I think the spot that I like the most is the over 1.5 at -165, which is why it's getting as much action as it is. But also the fight goes to decision at +150. Don't mind this small flyer there, but this fight just has a whole mixed bag of outcomes. That's probably what I set on the most, especially considering the odds that we're getting as well. What are you thinking here? You thinking first round slugfest knockout? What do you like here?
Well, see, if I thought it was going to end in the first round, I think I'd be leaning towards Dalcha just clipping him. But Soriano's shown a pretty decent chin. He's never been knocked out. The Brendan Allen fight especially, he gassed out, took some really clean shots to the chin, but, it held up for him. So that's going to be the key here is he needs to stretch Dalcha Lungiambula out because the dude is big, he's strong, he's physical, but he seems to struggle the later fights go. Look back at his fight with Magomed Ankalaev. He lands 6 significant strikes through 2 rounds. Fight ends early in the third, but he was not letting his hands go. His takedown defense, judo black belt, but not a guy that really wrestled per se, and eventually gets head kicked. Not a big deal because Ankalaev is, of course, an absolute beast. But all of his other fights similar. His win over Marcus Perez is low output. He lands 29 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes. You have this big, strong physicality, but you're not letting your hands go. The next fight against Barrio just swarms him up, outstrikes him in all 3 rounds, pushes the pace, outstrikes him. They're both tired, and Barrio just shows he's got better gas tank, perseveres. He got 2 takedowns over Marc-Andre Barrio with a 31 seconds of control time over him, right? So it doesn't matter if you can take a guy down. If you can't hold him down, you're just exerting energy. And it's kind of a sloppy performance. And then it all culminates, of course, with that last fight with Brundage. That one's the outlier because he's not conservative in that fight. It's as if he decides, you know what, I just got to let my hands go. So he does. And it looks like he's on the verge of knocking out Brundage. And then he flat gasses out. And Brundage just grabs a hold of his neck and he taps. So it's like, oh, man, a lot of limitations to his games overall. Could he go there and beat Soriano? Absolutely he could. But more than likely, I think the first round, close, competitive. He lands a couple shots. Soriano rolls with it. Soriano's got a little bit of like Hawaiian high school wrestling. I don't think it's going to be enough to take down Lungiambula, who's very strong and physical. Meanwhile, Lungiambula's judo is probably not enough to take down Soriano. So you probably got a measured kickboxing match at range. If Lungiambula decides to be old Dalcha and comes out and doesn't throw any strikes, he's going to lose by decision. If he comes out as new Dalcha and lets his hands go, I don't think he gets the knockout. And when it doesn't materialize, he'll gas out and probably still loses a decision, but could get TKO'd late if he just completely tires himself out. So I got to go with Soriano to get back in the win column, but this is not a fight that I have a whole lot of faith in. I suppose, again, because it's a prop show, that I would be going with that Soriano by decision. But like this, it's a greasy card, and this is a greasy fight on a greasy card, right? Both guys have low ring IQ. Both guys are considered not that trustworthy. And I used to have this theory where it's like, if you are one of Ali's inside guys, you will get the decisions, you will get the easy fights. But Dan Ige is living proof that that is not the case, right? They just throw the poor guy to the wolves all the time, right? It's possible that Soriano is not as good as everybody thought. And if that's the case, we're in for a rude awakening. So I don't want to put a ton of confidence and a ton of faith in it, but the official pick will be Soriano by decision.
I like it. Again, probably one of the most volatile fights on the card. You never know what you're going to get when Punahale Soriano steps into the cage there. But me and Cody, surprisingly, agreeing on the Puna by decision in this spot, or even the fight to go to decision.
I was going to say you had fight go to decision, and I think that's a good prop as well, because if Dulce does win and just lands the better shots over the course of 15, we just need Soriano to not get knocked out. And again, he's never been finished. He's 28 or 29 years old. He hasn't taken a bunch of concussive blows. Like, I think he's good enough to last. And with Dulce, I don't know. I don't know what version of him is going to show up. Conservative version or YOLO, I'm probably getting cut if I lose this. I might as well go out on my shield version. So be interesting.
I like it. All right. That is a wrap on the prelims. Shout out to the 160 live viewers that we currently have banging with us here. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already, just to show the All-Star folks that you guys appreciate us on their channel. Also, big shout out to betonline.ag, which is one of the main sponsors of the show. Make sure you guys check them out in the description below. They'll match your initial deposit up to $1,000, at least 50% of it. And they're probably one of the best sports books out there for MMA, right? They have regional MMA. They have they're usually the first guys on the market with props and odds to begin with. So if you're not already rocking with betonline.ag, make sure you guys hit the link in the description below and they'll take care of you there. Secondly, shout out to Cloudbet as well, which actually has a prop on this upcoming matchup that we're going to be talking about, and I'll talk about it on the back end of that breakdown. But they are probably one of the best sponsors that we have for the show, because how integrated they are becoming with the show and the props that we want to see on their site. So you guys already saw us talk about UFC, the last UFC events props early in the show. They have even more at the back end of the show that we're talking about, but they got a couple other cool ones sprinkled out throughout the card, and we'll talk about it on this next one, which is the first fight on the main card. We got Lauren Murphy going up against Miesha Tate, going down to 125 pounds. In terms of odds, we got minus 210 on Miesha Tate, plus 180 the return on Lauren Murphy. Now, Lauren Murphy coming off a loss in her first ever UFC title shot. That probably also is coming due to the fact that Shevchenko is just clearing out the division. So it's just like, who's next? And Lauren Murphy's number got
you over there with the broom. Come here.
Exactly. Yeah. But she did manage to put together a 5-fight winning streak, right? A couple sketchy decisions sprinkled in there, but she did still manage to get her hand raised 5 straight times in a row, setting her up for that title shot. And then she goes out there and gets finished in the 4th round by Valentina Shevchenko. But then again, who really expected that fight to go any other way? One thing that we've been seeing from Lauren Murphy over the last couple of fights, though, outside of that Shevchenko fight, is confidence with her striking. And I think a lot of that came with her really teaming up with Derek Lewis's striking coach, Bob Perez. I could be off on his name, but I know it includes Perez. Either way, he's that short, bald guy that you always see with Derek Lewis, but he's been in the training camp of Lauren Murphy for a while now, and you see her throwing with more confidence on her strikes. Maybe that's what the judges were seeing in the fight against Joanne Wood, that even though she got outstruck by 43 significant strikes that night, she was landing some big shots there, right? It was making the head of Joanne Wood really pop back, and that's probably what ended up swaying the judges onto her side. Even the Andrea Lee fight, she gets outstruck by 24 strikes that night, but still lands some big shots that probably swayed the judges on her side as well. The Shakarova fight, you know, Shakarova obviously took that fight on short notice, but we saw Lauren Murphy go out there with a chip on her shoulder, essentially, to just go out there and show Shakarova that there's levels to this, and she was able to go out there and get the finish in that fight. Here against Miesha Tate, it's very intriguing, right? Lauren Murphy is obviously 38 years old at this point in time. She'll be 39 by the end of July. And then Miesha Tate, on the other hand, 2 years younger than her, or 3 years younger than her, I should say. But it feels like Miesha is the one that's kind of, you know, she needs this win. And it's kind of weird to me that she's already trying to say, okay, I'm going to get a title shot if I win this fight, when she didn't really show us a great side of herself last time around against Ketlen Vieira. She got beat to the punch pretty much every single time. Obviously, she was up there in terms of significant strikes and being competitive in the numbers, but the fight was clear as day. Ketlen Vieira was just chewing her up from the outside over and over again. For some reason, I just have this funny feeling in the back of my head that Lauren Murphy is going to go out there, be able to stifle the grappling game plan of Miesha Tate and just chew her up on the feet. A part of me, I get it. Okay, Caitlin Vieira didn't finish her, so why the fuck is Lauren Murphy going to be able to? But when we look back at Caitlin Vieira's record, she's not much of a finisher. She stings you with her punches, but there's not really enough sauce on there to like put her opponents down and follow up with any big finishing opportunities. But the plus what is it here? Plus 1,100, plus 1,400 even I'm seeing on Lauren Murphy to win by KO is just whispering in my ear for some reason. I think she'll stop the grappling onslaught of Tate. We've seen Tate being very sloppy with her striking, even though she's a veteran at this point in time. I think even though she can put volume and output out there, I think she's going to get struck by the hardest strikes by Lauren Murphy here, which will ultimately, one, sway the judges her way if this fight does go the full 50 minutes, but two, also open up finishing opportunities for Lauren Murphy. And again, at plus 1,200, I feel like I got to take a little bit of a sprinkle. I am going to lean with the dog here. I think Murphy just has a little bit more left in the gas tank than Miesha Tate. I think she'll nullify the grappling of Miesha Tate, and if she can successfully do that, she should be able to chew her up on the feet, possibly winning by decision, like I said. But that KO line just speaking to me, Cody. I know you're not going to like this one, but what are you thinking for this matchup?
Yeah, no, I think that the UFC set this one up pretty good in favor of Miesha Tate. Like, this is what you got to think about. The divisions is like segregated into two halves, right? You've got the upper echelon where Valentina Shevchenko's already run through all of them. The top contenders are Caitlin Chukagian, who she's defeated, Taylor Santos, who she recently just defeated, Jennifer Maia, who she's defeated, Joanne Calderwood's fallen off a cliff. You can't book that fight anymore. Like the upper division. Now the lower end of the division actually looks good. We're talking Tracy Cortez. We're talking Erin Blanchfield. We're talking, a Macy Barber, if that's your thing. We're talking Alexa Grasso. But they're all too inexperienced at this very moment to fight Valentina Shevchenko. So they're desperate for a title challenger. Now, Lauren Murphy hasn't fought in a year. She's 38 years old. She got routed by Valentina Shevchenko in a completely non-competitive fight. And then she went on record this week to be like, I had really bad health issues going into that fight. I should have never even taken it. My body, this and that. It's like, yeah, because you're 38, you're war-torn. The weight cuts are getting to you. It's a tough spot. You shouldn't have fought. You did anyways. You got routed. You've been off a year. None of that sounds good to me. The other thing is you mentioned the 5-fight winning streak. The 5-fight winning streak looks good, but it's not good. The Andrea Lee fight, she robbed Andrea Lee. It was not a good performance. She got outstruck officially by Lee 104-80, but she snuck in 2 takedowns, and it was in Texas, and the judges gave it to her. She got lucky. The fight with Joanne Calderwood, she got outstruck 123-80, but again, she squeaks it out in a decision she probably did not earn. But see, here's the thing that Andrea Lee and Joanne Calderwood have in common. Neither of them can grapple defensively. So you can just get out of dodge free by pushing them up against the cage and fishing for some takedowns. She's not going to go out there and win a clinch battle versus Miesha Tate or out-wrestle Miesha Tate for the simple fact that, one, Miesha Tate's a better wrestler and grappler, and two, Miesha Tate's larger. She's coming down to 125. She's going to be big and strong and physical. You mentioned Caitlin Vieira. Caitlin Vieira is 5'8". She's giant. She's physically strong. Lauren Murphy's 5'5", a little bit older, a little more rugged, a little more, rough around the edges. I think Tate will sprawl and brawl her at best, but then keep the fight standing and outbox her, right? And certainly with the volume. The thing with Lauren Murphy is that I mentioned the Joanne Calderwood fight, she gets soundly outstruck. The Andrea Lee fight, she gets soundly outstruck. What are her other big wins? Mara Romero Borella? Roxanne Modafferi? How about that fight with Lilia Shakarova? Are any of those inspiring to you? No. But the UFC needed somebody to throw into a title fight, so they did. I don't think that means anything. Now, how is Tate going to be at 125? I think okay. I never thought she was the biggest 35er going to begin with. I will admit the enhancements that she's rocking on the front of her probably going to weigh her down a little bit, but it looked like I didn't actually see. Did she look okay at weigh-ins? I'll have to check it out.
Fine. The show. I thought she was fine.
She's such an adamant professional, and I made the comment. She was on a Celebrity Big Brother, won it, wrecked everybody, mentally the strongest, physically the strongest, and the whole time just like dieting. Like they're eating cake and cookies, and she's just like eating collard greens and like cutting weight. She's known about this fight for 6 months. Lauren Murphy was the one that bailed out of it a couple times, I believe. And so I think just Tate's at a good position. Murphy wins fights by being a little more determined, a little more of a grinder, a little more, proactive, right? But she's fighting girls that can't exactly grapple and that are easily to clinch and, dirty box. That little shuffle uppercut from the inside, stay in the clinch, cover that distance. Against Tate, I don't think she's going to have that. So it could be a women's MMA fight that just goes south on me. Listen, it wouldn't be the first time that's happened, so like I'm not crazy, but the Tate by decision looked pretty good to me, because as much as I can chew on Lauren Murphy, finishing her is very, very difficult. She's tough. Shevchenko did it, but apparently her body was shutting down on her, and still took a couple rounds to get warmed up in that one, I suppose. So give me a decision prop on Miesha Tate.
The special prop that Cloudbet is actually offering for this fight is successful takedowns landed by Miesha Tate. It is currently set at over under 2.5. Under, you're getting -150. Over, you're getting +130. What are you thinking here, Cody? Over under 2.5 takedowns for Tate?
Yeah, I'm gonna think the under, because I mean, if you want to look at it historically, Lauren Murphy got taken down 3 times by Shevchenko, but outside of that, no one's been able to take her down many more times. She took on Sijera Eubanks, big, strong, physical grappler, was able to largely keep the fight standing. And then for Miesha Tate, offensively, I don't know that she's going to go out and score many more than 2 takedowns. I also don't think the game plan necessarily is go exert yourself trying to take this girl down as much as it's going to be you're faster, you have faster hands, faster striking, faster footwork. We're fighting in the large octagon. Dictate the action. Use your wrestling to keep her away from you and stop the clinch battle, but largely strike. Maybe she shoots a takedown in the mix to secure rounds, but I don't think that's the game plan. And for that reason, I think she gets 1 or 2, certainly not over the 2.5. So sign me with the under 2.5 for that prop.
I will absolutely agree with you there. A little bit chalky, but I do think we see that get done. All right, let us move on to the next fight here. This has got to be in the lead for fight of the night contender. We got Shane Burgos going up against our fellow Canadian Charles Jourdain. -165 on Burgos, +140 on Charles. I just had to add that little bit of French to it. I just had to, like, grade 9 French class coming to me here. But very fun fight here, man. As soon as it was matched up, everybody was ripping and roaring here, saying that, hey, like, this is the one that we should be circling on our calendars. It will more than likely provide us with the entertainment that we so seek whenever we watch these UFC fights. Now, Shane Burgos, something I've come to find out about him over his last several fights. The guy's hittable, man. The guy can be dinged up by a lot of his opponents. I thought that he would have the edge here against Josh Emmett when he fought him back in June of 2020. They pretty much matched on significant strikes, but good God, did Josh Emmett land the bigger and better strikes, which ultimately got him the dub that night. Same could have been said for Emmett's next fight against Calvin Kattar, where Kattar, tries to touch him up from the outside, but the big power of Josh Emmett shines through.
Dude's got power.
Even Shane Burgos against Edson Barboza landing the bigger strikes, although Burgos was having some good shots. Barboza obviously finishes him in the 3rd round with that weird finish, whereas the delayed reaction from Shane Burgos. But we're seeing the damage really start to pile up on Shane Burgos here. And the more you drag him into wars, I think the more that we're going to see that durability start to fall off. And like it almost reminds me of Miguel Baeza, right? A guy that I thought had a very bright future. He has all the skills in the world, all the talent in the world, but he just can't withstand getting banged on by some of these bigger punches or these guys that are willing to bite down on the mouthpiece and throw big haymakers. Now, Burgos obviously did manage to get a dub in his last fight against Billy Quarantillo, which probably would have got fight of the night had it not proceeded Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. But we did see them land upwards of almost 400 strikes, close to 400 strikes that night landed between Billy Q and Shane Burgos. But Shane, technically the better striker there, and it showcases as he's able to touch up Billy Q over those 15 minutes. On the flip side for Charles, putting together a little bit of a run here, starting off with that win over Andre Ewell, where he outstruck him nearly triple his numbers there. So good win for him there. And then that quick win over Lando Venata, where he gets that guillotine choke and finishes him there. But I think we're going to get a slugfest here. I think we could see this go, maybe the 15 minutes, but it's going to be a nail biter the entire way, considering how these guys throw and how hittable each one of them are. I do end up leaning on the Canadian side here, though, man. I do think that Jourdain will be able to touch up Burgos slightly better, maybe even land the more devastating blows, maybe put Burgos on skates a couple times. I do think that Burgos will likely have the volume advantage here, but I do think he's going to get touched up a little bit too much, and I think that it could ultimately lead to a finish for Jourdain. Jourdain by TKO is currently sitting at plus 425. Fight doesn't go to decision at minus 140, but I do think the bigger win condition via finish comes on the Charles Jourdain side. I think Charles is quite durable, that he should be able to take most of the punches that are coming from Shane Burgos and make it to the 15-minute mark. But I do think that it's going to be Jourdain landing the bigger strikes, landing that possible knockout blow, and he'll eventually get his hand raised here. So I like him as the underdog at plus 140. I get it. He's going to be at a technical disadvantage here, but that doesn't matter when you're fighting Shane Burgos, because you can pretty much hit him with anything you throw out there. So I'm going to go Jourdain by KO at plus 425. Yeah. You with me on the fellow Canadian here, Cody, or do you think that Burgos squeaks this one out?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go with Shane Burgos to sweep this one out. Like, I just think he's felt the better level of competition. He's always the one coming forward, so Jourdain's going to largely have to be fighting off of his back foot. And I just think he's all around just a little bit better. I wish he would wrestle a lot more. Dude's actually got a 100% takedown accuracy. He's only ever tried 2 takedowns, and he got both of them. And the last one was in 2017. So Shane Burgos is not going to wrestle. That would be the way to maybe get Charles Jourdain to the ground, rough him up a bit. I don't think he'll do it. I think it'll be a brawl. I think it'll be a nail biter, just like you said, tit for tat the entire time. And I think it will see the final buzzer, and they'll give it to Burgos. Burgos by decision, plus 200. Going to be absolutely greasy. But if you like greasy and you don't like Shane Burgos, one thing I will give you credit on here is not my style, but maybe something worth looking into if you like that stuff. But what is the Charles Jourdain by 3rd round knockout prop?
Let's see here. Jourdain by 3rd round KO is plus 2,500.
Okay, now bear with me on this. Plus 2,500. Now, Shane Burgos loves to scrap. Also, scrapping tends to get you knocked out. First time he loses, Calvin Kattar, him and Calvin, they go war, right? In the 3rd round, he gets knocked out 32 seconds into the 3rd when Calvin Kattar hits him with a sharp counter, puts him away. Damn. 3rd round KO. Fair enough. He meets Cub Swanson. It's a legendary battle, right? They're going tit for tat. They're scrapping the entire time. Cub Swanson lands a fight-high 49 significant strikes in the 3rd round and wobbles Burgos on multiple occasions, okay? Kurt Holleba scored a clean knockdown over Shane Burgos in the 1st round, but then got submitted. Not with a 3rd round situation, but even a guy like Holleba can hurt him and drop him. His chin's not great, and he allows himself to get in these crazy brawls and get knocked out. So we know he got knocked out in the 3rd versus Kattar, right? We know that the Cub Swanson fight, he allowed Cub Swanson to have his best round in the 3rd. That ended up being a split decision. The Josh Emmett fight, okay, gives up the 2 knockdowns, 1 in the 3rd. Josh Emmett lands, wouldn't you know it, a fight-high 51 significant strikes in the 3rd round. Rocks him, hurts him, almost puts him away. What's interesting about that is in his very next fight, Edson Barbosa knocks him out. In which round, you ask? The 3rd round. Burgos is a man on fire. He is possessed. He comes at you. But by the 3rd round, he's chewed up and he's vulnerable for the taking. Jourdain is one of these guys that has 15 minutes cardio, and he's wild. He's like a Yair Rodriguez, where he'll throw a spinning back elbow for no no reason. They call him Air Jourdain because he goes airborne with the flying knees. And normally he's got to worry about the dude trying to take him down, but against Burgos, he probably don't got to worry about that. So he's going to let his kicks go. He's going to let his hands fly. He's going to throw a bunch of whack-ass shit. Something probably connects. If it does, probably happens in the 3rd round. Plus 2,500. Oh, man, I don't know. Even a believer like me who's picking Burgos would have to have a look at that.
Dude, I wouldn't even count out the possible club and sub too, right? We've seen Jourdain lock up a couple next year, but to just pick Jourdain in round 3 is plus 1,700. So why not cover both, right? Rather than taking the plus 2,500, which I absolutely agree with, right? Like, I do think that's absolutely live, but do you really want to get robbed of that and take the plus 2,500 rather than the plus
you know what? I hear you, but like, I've seen training tape of Burgos, and like, his jiu-jitsu is slick. And then if you remember the Makwan Amirkhani fight, like, Makwan had his neck deep. And it's like, this dude got pretty good submission defense. Thing is when you're thinking to yourself, where the hell am I? And the guy's on your back because he clubbed you, and now he's about to sub you. Shit happens, dude. Glover Teixeira had never been subbed before, but shit tends to happen. So I hear your point, dude. I do. Imagine you got it in the 3rd round, but you took specifically knockout. You'd feel so bad.
Dude,
okay.
I'll never forgive Tyron Woodley for getting his first ever Darce choke against her until the night I bet him by KO. Like, come on, motherfucker.
I will never forget Tyron Woodley for blowing an incredible Colby Covington by decision prop when he decided his rib hurt in the 5th round. It's the 5th dog.
I cashed that shit. Plus
Oh,
2,500.
no. So did Paul.
So did
Paul. He had inside the distance. I was like, dude, Woodley sucks, but he's durable.
Yeah.
5th round rib injury. My God.
I love it. A great prop here by Cloudbet that I forgot to plug. 2 of them. So I'm going to pose this question to you, Cody. First of which, and I know you're going to love the second one, but first of which, total significant strikes landed by both men over under 159.5.
Over under 159.5. That's a over for me. If it goes 15 minutes, they're both averaging at least 80. I don't know. It'd be 90 aside. One guy's going to get 100. One guy will get 88. It'd be good for 180 strikes anyways. So the over under was 160. What?
What, 159?
159? Yeah. I think worst case we get 160. We're still over. Best case you get 200 plus. I'd like the over there.
I like it as well. And the second one, I feel like this is a prop that you would have suggested, but I channeled my inner Cody when they're asking me which props we should put up. Who will bleed first? Jourdain or Burgos?
I like it. I'm going to say Burgos. Burgos tends to defend with his face, and Charles Jourdain's got that young French, it's the elasticity, or what do you pronounce that? Elasticity? Yeah, his skin's good to go. He's young, il parle du français, il est bon, il regarde bon, il sait comment faire du combat. Il va être correct, mon ami. Louis Jourdain, Charles Jourdain, les frères du Québec. Ils sont beaux.
Jourdain, what a shout out.
Yeah, I know. I tried to book him. His opponent got hurt. Shoulder injury.
Bitch.
What can you do?
In terms of the odds, you would actually be getting underdog odds there. You get plus 112 on Burgos to bleed first, and minus 130-ish on Charles Jourdain if he bleeds first. So Cloudbet,
I like the first blood matches. I do, yeah.
There you go. Channeling your inner WWF fan from back in the day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let us move on to the next fight here. Another great fight we got at flyweight. We got match now taking on Sumudaerji. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 260 for the Chinese fighter, plus 220 the return on Matt Danger Schnell. Gotta lean with the Chinese fighter here, Cody. I do think he's the slicker striker from range, and I think that's where this fight is majorly going to be, or majorly going to be played out in. Technically speaking, I think that Schnell might be the better striker, like with how he throws his strikes and hooks and combinations and all that, but he's going to need to be within striking distance, within that pocket to really have true success with those spots. The other kind of like flaw that we know from Sumudaerji's game is his grappling. And if Matt Schnell can kind of go that way and try to expose that, I think he could have some success, but that's just not the way Matt Schnell fights, nor is he trustworthy to go out there and put out that type of game plan. Now, I know a lot of people are on the Sumudaerji via KO because that sits at minus 110, but this almost reminds me of the Zaruk Adeshev fight where people expect him to go out there and just flatline his opponent. But he has shown that he's okay to go out there and have a 15-minute kickboxing match if that's what it's going to take. And I think that's what he's going to look to do here against Matt Schnell. Touch him up from the outside, use that teep to keep the distance, enter the pocket every now and then to get some strikes off, but more often than not, he's going to be on the outside, treading that warning track inside the UFC cage and really just touch up Matt Schnell from the outside. Now, he doesn't have a huge advantage in terms of like size and reach here against against Matt Schnell. Like I believe the stats here, they're pretty much the same size, and Sumudaerji has a 2-inch reach advantage. But even when they are the same size, you do see that Sumudaerji, like the distance playing, he plays it very well. Like he's very crafty from the outside, and a lot of that is based around the kicks that he's able to implement in his game. And I think that's going to pay off for him here against Matt Schnell, who the majority of his success comes with his hands and comes with trading inside the pocket. So I'm gonna lean on the Sumudaerji side here, and I'm actually going to lean it to go via decision. So fight goes to decision, currently sits at plus 140. But Sumudaerji to win via decision is currently sitting at plus 300. I think that's a damn good line. I think we see this turn out to be a 15-minute kickboxing matchup. On the flip side, I do see my guy here, Anton D, saying Schnell by sub at plus 695. I think that would be live if we could actually trust Matt Schnell to take that approach. And I just don't think he's going to take it, nor do I think his wrestling is good enough to remain relentless with it to eventually open up that submission opportunity for him. So give me Sumudaerji via decision. What about yourself, Cody?
Yeah, I actually was going with that Schnell by submission prop. Like, this is a kind of spot where I typically fall myself into. But what do I like about Sumudaerji at minus 270 on the money line, especially? Like, I just can't come to the price tag. And here's the problem, right? He's a good-looking 26-year-old Chinese prospect that the UFC would like to move up the rankings. Sure, for sure. But let's keep in mind the guy makes his UFC debut. He makes his UFC debut coming off of a loss on the Chinese regional scene. So that right there is a red flag. Because how many guys get to make a debut in the UFC coming off of a loss? Doesn't really make much sense. Yeah, my war touchdown. Wow, I shouldn't say that to everybody. A lot of people don't like touchdown.
No.
Yeah, let me take back that war touchdown thing. But going back here is he loses and then he debuts against Louis Smolka. Now Louis Smolka comes in, he relatively easily takes him to the ground, and when he had him on the ground, he smoked him. Easily is able to transition, easily is able to pass guard. He's able to choke him out in the second round. Or sorry, it was an armbar in the second round. Louis Smolka just styled on him when the fight hit the ground. Now, interestingly enough, he had now 2-fight losing streak. The fight he had lost on the Chinese regional scene prior to that, also by submission, choked out in the second round. His other pro losses, choked out in the second round and armbarred in the first round. Submission defense is his problem. Grappling is his problem. So what does the UFC do? They book him against Andre Sukmantath because Andre Sukmantath is a one-dimensional striker. So Sumudaerji is able to strike at distance, look pretty okay in that fight, gets the win. They then book him against Malcolm Gordon. Malcolm Gordon is another kind of wrestling to implement his grappling for the most part, but he's a little chinny and Sumudaerji clips him early, 44 seconds in. You never really get to see the grappling exchanges. It's striking, fair. Then they book him against Zaruk Adashev. Zaruk Adashev's 5'5" and has absolutely no modicum of grappling to his game. So how could you confidently say that Sumudaerji has improved his grappling? How could you? Because you haven't seen it. It's possible. He's still only 26. But to me, he's still only 26. He's young. He's green. His 4 pro losses are all by submission. And now he's fighting in the UFC against guys that, for the most part, Sukmantath cut. I believe Adashev cut. Malcolm Gordon's winning some lower level fights within the division to keep himself going. But it's not like it's the highest level. Smolka's also released. That was his one lone loss. I don't know that I can get to the price tag of nearly 3-1 favorite on him. Meanwhile, when you look at Matt Schnell, yeah. Is he a little bit chinny? I always say yes. This dude is chinny. But to his credit, he has not been knocked out in 3 years. That was against Alexander Pantoja, who's a stud. His other knockout losses, Rob Font, no punching power, but again, a stud. Hector Sandoval, that one was a little bit wonky, but it's 2017, right? It's 5 years ago. Since then, he's fought in some decent guys. He's taken some decent shots, and he's looked okay. When you and I previewed the fight versus Tyson Nam, I told you Tyson Nam's going to clip him at some point and knock him out because he's chinny. You told me Matt Schnell's striking's actually improved a lot. He'll probably outwork him. He's got fast hands, decent boxing. He'll probably just outwork him. That's exactly what happened. Matt Schnell goes out there, stays at distance, lands 88 significant strikes, and outworks Tyson Nam. It's a clean victory. His losses, his recent 2 losses, Rogerio Bontorin, gigantic, right? Pretty good fighter in his own right, and had missed weight 6 pounds in that fight versus Schnell. Tough go. The next fight versus Brandon Royval, he has Brandon Royval on skates, drops him, clean knockdown, falls him to the ground, and immediately Royval gets scrambling and able to catch him with something. Those are high-level guys. Royval's a top 10 talent. Bontorin's not even a flyweight, but it's still a top 10 talent. He's fought in a better level. His grappling's good. And I think at some point, Sumudaerji, not overlooking him, but the fight hits the ground, Schnell's going to lock something up. If the fight stays standing, Sumudaerji could conk him with something and knock him out. But if he comes out with that same approach he did in his last fight, where it's like, oh, I'm just going to take my time and try to set up my left hand from the outside, he might get outworked. Schnell's been known to have trouble making 125, but you can let me know on this. Did he have any issues? Did he look okay?
He seemed fine.
Because he was having heart palpitations again afterwards, I'd say yank this entire discussion and just take the Sumudaerji. But yeah, I just got a feeling that the price is off, and this is a pick going towards Schnell for no other reason than I think the line is just off. So I'm going to take Schnell. My book's got plus 700. I don't know what the guy mentioned was 695. Same shit, all the same shit. You're getting an excellent price on Schnell by submission, and Schnell has a pretty good submission game. BJJ black belt, submitted Louis Smolka like nothing with a triangle off his back. He's got the win over Jordan Espinoza, like nothing with a triangle off his back. You know, Espinoza went 15 minutes with Tim Elliott, overcame a lot of bad grappling spots. But Schnell catches you. You know, he's opportunistic. He's fast. He's got good grappling. Guy's experienced. I think he's primed for an upset. So younger Cody would have Sumudaerji on his second ticket and then be making apologies on Sunday morning. And I'm trying to avoid that shit now. So sign me up with Matt Schnell.
All right, we go head to head on that matchup. I feel pretty good about Sumudaerji here again. That grappling is the big question mark, and we'll see if Match Now can take advantage of it. All right, let us move on to the next fight here. We got 3 fights left. Next of which is another Chinese fighter coming into the cage. We got Jingliang taking on Muslim Salikhov in the welterweight division. In terms of odds, we got -155 on Salikhov, +135 the return on Jingliang. Now, very interesting fight here in terms of like, is the karate kung fu style of Muslim Salikhov going to pay off here with the speed and his spinning shit? Is he going to be able to outstrike Jingliang, who likes to come forward, throw big shots, try to knock out his opponents? Like in his last, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? In his last 5 fights, 4 of them have finished inside the distance. Obviously, one of them being his last one to Khamzat Chimaev back at UFC 267. But the fight before that, he was able to play patty cake with Santiago Ponzinibbio for about 4 minutes until he decided to uncork a bomb, welcoming Ponzinibbio to the cage with some brain damage. But that's what type of knockout power that Jingliang possesses. But is he going to be able to catch Salikhov, who does a pretty good job of just staying on the outside and not really allowing his opponents to have much striking success? Like a lot of Salikhov's fights are played at a low pace, low volume-ish, although he did land 62 significant strikes against Trinaldo. But that was a fight where he had a clear speed advantage, was able to record a knockdown in that fight, and ultimately take home that decision victory. But even in the Zaleski dos Santos fight, close fight, possibly deserved to go to Zaleski there, but they both landed like 40 significant strikes, nothing crazy there. Staropoli outstrikes him by almost 20 strikes there, lands 63 strikes, even lands 3 takedowns that night, showing off his full MMA game, to be honest. I think that was a good look for him. But here against Jingliang, going to be a tough test against a guy who's been in there with one of the best guys in the game, right? He's fought pretty much every level of opponent that you could possibly fight in the UFC, from Bobby Nash to Zach Otto to Daichi Abe to Neil Magny to Santiago Ponzinibbio to Khamzat Chimaev. Like those are just some of the names that Jingliang has shared the cage with. I do lean with where the chalk is here. I do think that Salikhov could outstrike Jingliang here and just keep this as a tepid, like low-paced volume fight. Which leads me to my other bet that I kind of like here is the fight goes to decision at -120. I do think that we're going to see these guys exchange strikes for the most part of it. I think both their durabilities will hold up. I mean, if anything, I think Salikhov is more prone to get finished here with that big Jingliang power. But I like the way he controls his range, like the way he controls his distance, uses his kicks very well to establish that. But then I don't think he's going to be able to find that chin of Jingliang clearly enough here to find that knockout. So give me Salikhov by decision, which is currently sitting at plus 150. But most importantly, the fight goes to decision at -120. I think the reason it's so low is because of the record that Jingliang currently has of finishes, but it's all stylistic clashes, right? It all depends on what your opponent brings to the table and if they can survive the big power review early in this fight. And I think we'll see Muslim roll with the shots, take off the brunt of the power of Jingliang while landing the better strikes to take home that decision victory. But -120 for the fight goes to decision. Sign me the fuck up. What about you, Cody? What do you like here?
You know what? I'd like an interesting prop. I wish I would have had this interesting prop here. Is that will the fight go the distance, but feature a knockdown? Like there's going to be a knockdown in the fight, but the fight will still go the distance. So I think Salikhov is going to drop Jingliang Li. I think Jingliang Li will get back up. Jingliang Li is against knocked down 5 times in the UFC. Never been knocked out. Crazy stat to me. Salikhov, meanwhile, he's got a great knockdown game. So I think at some point he'll probably hit him, hurt him, put him down. But Jingliang Li will just get back up. That getting back up thing is the problem. I think him being able to keep coming forward and try to just push more of a pace is what's going to allow him to eventually take over in this fight. You mentioned it all with Muslim Salikhov. He's very low output. He's a guy that has phenomenal striking, but tends to be very at range, waits for the perfect shot, not many in combination, fast, very athletic guy. But I just don't really think that he's got a complete game. You mentioned his takedowns as well, right? He took down Francisco Trinaldo twice and got 40 seconds of top control. He took down Laureano Staropoli 3 times and got 30 seconds of top control. So another guy that might be able to foot sweep you, another guy that might be able to take you down really quick, but doesn't really have that refined grappling game. He's been fighting Ricky Rainey, Nordine Taleb, Leonardo Staropoli, for the most part, lower level guys. The fight with Zaleski dos Santos, he should have lost. He lost the first 2 rounds. That fight could have been scored a 30-27 for Zaleski. And he squeaks out of it, right? His very next fight against Trinaldo's a big name, so it sounds good. Trinaldo is also 41 years old. He's 5'9", and they forced him out of the 55-pound division and moved him up to 170. You're not getting the best version of him, and as a result, it's fairly low output and goes to decision. I don't know that I can get enough out of that. Jingliang Li, meanwhile, his takedown defenses has been his issue. You see him routinely getting taken down, Jake Matthews, or you mentioned the Khamzat Chimaev fight. But again, these are good guys, prolific takedown artists, and he's getting taken down at a higher level. Against Salikhov, Salikhov, the king of Kung Fu, do I really think this guy's going to go out with a grappling heavy game plan? No. And even if he did get the fight to the ground, he's not going to hold him down. And even if he managed to hold him down, he's not going to submit him, right? So take that off the table. What you're going to have is a striking battle. And if it is a striking battle, Jingliang Li should be able to move forward, and they call him the leech for a reason. He just wears on you. I know you said most of his fights are by knockout, but that's just like a byproduct of him tiring his opponent out, causing them to make a mistake, and then knocking them out. I don't think Salikhov makes that mistake. I just think that Jingliang Li is going to outwork him. So that's kind of the route that I've been looking, was the Jingliang Li by decision. Again, he just fought the higher level of competition. He's just a bruiser, comes forward, and I think he's going to have the slightly better overall volume. So I'm going to take the leech to get the job done.
I don't mind it, but I'm glad that we do agree upon the fact that this will likely go the full 15 minutes, and at minus 120 for the fight goes to decision. I got to take a little bit of a shot on that because I do think it's quite live here.
Yeah, they're both super durable, especially when it comes to like their chin, and both their submission defense are maybe lackluster, but neither of them are submission guys. So, I mean, and it's going to be trepid pace. It's not like they're going to be out there slinging. The one thing that's interesting is Jingliang Li likes to come forward and brawl, and Salikhov, most of the time when guys fight him, they're like, I'm not engaging this dude. He's waiting to counter. So Jingliang Li probably walks straight forward into a counter and gets knocked out for the first time in his career, which could be an awesome price tag. But the reason I'm taking Lee is I think he hits the canvas, props back up, jumps back on him, and then hopefully he's able to tire him out and grind him down, get the job done the longer the fight goes. And if you're some big Muslim Salikhov like truther, like just watch the Zaleski dos Santos fight again. He's not that good, right? He's not all that good. He's coming off a year-long absence now. He's 38 years old. Like, none of this bodes well, I don't think, but of course you can't get them all right. And this is just another greasy spot. So the underdog is Jingliang Li, right? It's slight dog money Jingliang Li. And to me, it's just a dog or pass situation.
All right, let us move on to the co-main event, which takes place in the women's strawweight division. We got Amanda Lemos coming in at minus 305, going up against Michelle Waterson Gomez. She's out of the hyphen to her name, folks, and now she is finally taking her husband's last name, but it is with the hyphen, like I said. Waterson Gomez now comes in at plus 255. Interesting fight here. Obviously, Lemos falling short in her last fight against Jessica Andrade, where she gets arm triangle choked while standing. That just goes to show the power that Jessica Andrade is able to generate when she does get that squeeze going. That did actually snap a 5-fight winning streak that Amanda Lemos had started to get together. Especially since moving down to 115 pounds, right? Her UFC debut was actually back in July of 2017, where she got finished by Leslie Smith in the second round up at 135 pounds. Then she took off nearly 2.5 years and came back looking like a completely different fighter, rattles off a rear naked choke win over Miranda Granger in her return, beats Mizuki Inoue over 15 minutes, then has another two quick finishes Lavinia Souza. She knocks her out in 3.5 minutes. She knocks out Montserrat Conejo, who I'm still wondering whether she's going to come back or not. I remember that one fight she had against Cheyenne Bays where she just headlocked her, schoolyard headlocked her the entire 15 minutes. But we haven't heard much of her since that fight. And then obviously she follows that up with a close split decision victory over Angela Hill. A lot of people thought Angela Hill deserved the win that night. Lemos comes out with her hand raised, but then she does run into Jessica Andrade, who just puts that squeeze on her and gets her out of there. On the flip side, for Michelle Waterson, she's currently 1-3 in her last 4 fights. Her one win was that split decision victory over the aforementioned Angela Hill. She actually got outstruck by 3 strikes in that fight, but that was a 25-minute fight from what people, if you recall that fight. And I do think that that fight actually came down to the 5th round where it was 2-2, and you get the hias from Michelle Waterson taking a page out of her buddy Holly Holmes' book. And I think that really did sway the judges there, as it seemed like she was the one landing the more significant strikes as the fight was coming to an end there. But she did manage to take an L in her following fight against Marina Rodriguez. If I'm not mistaken, that was a short notice fight that got put together. Rodriguez came in on fight week from Brazil from like a 30+ hour trip or something, if I'm not mistaken. But Rodriguez still manages to put up the win there, outstriking Michelle close to by 40 significant strikes that night. That was May of last year. So just about a full year of absence from Michelle Waterson Gomez. But one thing I feel like has been very underrated in her game is her takedown and her grappling game, right? That's something that we do see on display every now and then. And I think that's something that she might be able to take advantage of here against Lemos. However, I just don't know if it happens at a solid enough clip that we actually see her get the dub here. I do think that Lemos will likely outstrike her for the first 2 rounds, stopping the takedowns and keeping this fight upright. Round 3 is going to get a little bit shaky, and Waterson does have 5-round experience where she could turn it up a notch should she have to in round 3. But I do think this ultimately looks like, the value chasers on the Michelle Waterson side will likely be ripping up their tickets, and Lemos will come out on the other hand with a decision victory, which currently has a price tag of Lemos by decision is plus 100. I think that is the side here. Like I said, Waterson could land some takedowns, but I think we'll see Lemos get back to her feet or even stop the takedowns for the majority of those first 2 rounds, outstrike Waterson, win this fight via decision. Are you on the same boat as me here, Cody, or do you think that Michelle Waterson has some value here at plus 255?
Yeah, but that's the thing. It comes down to value again. So I'm going to take the Michelle Waterson plus 255. Of course, women's MMA. How could you ever have a favorite this big? But
Yeah,
she's got a lot of good stuff to her game, too. This is her first, this is 3 of her last 4 fights have gone 5-round decisions, right? So in a 3-round fight, you might be able to expect her to push a little bit more of a pace. But of course, she's fought world-class competition. She's fought the former champion, Jourdain Jacek, the current champion, Carlos Esparza. By the way, she got robbed by Carlos Esparza. And that fight's only a couple of years ago.
yeah.
Could have beaten the current champion. Not terrible. She's fought Rose Namajunas. She's fought in just an absolute who's of girls in the division. And for the most part, she's shown very good durability. She's shown good striking. She's shown good grappling. She generally scores at least 1 takedown in most of her fights. There's a lot that you can like out of her. Her fights generally go to decision. They're generally competitive-ish. And at this price tag, if I get a close fight that goes to the scorecards, I'm in it. Meanwhile, if you want to talk about experience, what has Lemos done? You mentioned the fact that she got beat up pretty good by Leslie Smith. And then after that, win over Miranda Granger. That does nothing for me. Granger's cut. Mizuki Inoue doesn't do anything for you. Mizuki Inoue is cut. Livian Souza. Ooh, that's a bad one. Livian Souza, for the record, cut. Montserrat Ruiz. I don't know what she's up to, as you mentioned, but she's right on that borderline of getting cut. So then they give her Angela Hill. Perfect. Angela Hill's an actual, gatekeeper, journeyman type fighter within the division. It's her first step up. Angela Hill, a lot of similarities to Michelle Waterson. This would be our first good, pint-sized portion to see what she's capable of. But the first round, she scores a knockdown. We know she's got big power. But when that knockdown failed to materialize, she got outstruck handily in the second round. Didn't look great. Third round's very close, very competitive. I did score the fight for Angela Hill. Unfortunately, the judges didn't agree. But by no stretch was this some great victory. And then she goes from that to the Jessica Andrade fight where she's completely non-competitive, gets finished early in the first round. But of course, no one's going to hold that against her. Low-key, she's 35 years old. So I don't know how many improvements she's really going to make to her game. She's got big power, and she's shown us this big power against the Montserrat Ruiz and the Miranda Grangers of the world. But that's, again, low level. Against Michelle Waterson, the karate hottie, she's going to have a lot more trouble tracking her down, I think. They're in the big cage. Michelle Waterson moves very well laterally. She's good with her kicks. She's good with her counters. She's going to be throwing out all types of kias, and judges tend to listen to the kias. And if you can kind of dictate that outside of the cage space, stay to the outside, stay active, try to put up some punch output, and then maybe squeeze in a little bit of wrestling every now and again. She's live. Women's MMA. We see it all the time. And so I am actually going to take another dog flyer here on Michelle Waterson. And then furthermore, Michelle Waterson by decision. Could she catch her in a submission? Potentially, sure. But Jessica Andrade is very physically strong. So her submission game is exponentially better because she's got that squeeze on her. Whereas like Waterson might be able to set it up, but will she be able to put Rui, or will she be able to put her away? That's a different story. I think it'll be a decision, but I'm going with Waterson. And straight up, it's another situation where the money line price is so good, you don't feel the need to chase it. But of course, this is a prop show, so the prop would be fight goes the distance. But if you want a little more juice on that, you want to get a little greasy with it, I'm thinking Waterson by decision.
Waterson by decision currently sitting around plus 400 on certain books. But if you do think that she could replicate what Jessica Andrade was able to do and get a submission victory, you'd be looking at plus 1,300 for Waterson by submission for anybody interested in that. All right. Shout out to the 200 live viewers that we currently have rocking with us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Show the All-Star that you guys appreciate us on their channel here. And the last time I looked, I think we were still at double digits likes, and that's just not gonna cut it, guys. We got over like I said, 200 folks in here, and less than 50% of you guys hitting the like. Come on, we give you guys 2 hours a week to break these fights down for you guys. Well, the least you guys can do is hit us with that like. Appreciate it when you guys do take that time to do that. All right. And secondly, obviously, shout out to betonline.ag, one of the best sports books out there. Usually the first guys on the block with odds for UFC fights, with the props, all the regional MMA that you can take as well. Betonline.ag has you covered. Make sure you check out the link in the description below and show them some love there. And then secondly, Cloudbet as well. One of the best sports books in terms of working with us and giving us the props that we want to give you guys so that you guys can have a little extra fun once we get to fight night. We'll talk about those special Cloudbet props on the back end of the main event breakdown, which we'll get into right now. So main event, we got a featherweight fight on the line. For some reason, it feels like this fight's been made for a long time, and we're finally getting it this weekend. We're getting featherweight standouts. Brian Ortega coming in at minus 170, plus 145, the return on Yair Rodriguez. Interesting fight here between two guys with, pretty obvious styles, right? Rodriguez with his flashy striking style, loves to throw the spinning shit, the flying shit, really loves to just inflict damage on his opponents from outside. And then on the flip side with Brian Ortega, really needs to get the fight into the jiu-jitsu room to have much success outside of the Korean Zombie fight, which he's, weirdly enough, outstruck Korean Zombie for the majority of 25 minutes to take home that decision victory. But from all accounts, I mean, I heard that Korean Zombie was very much rocked and hurt after that first big elbow that he ate. I believe it was in the first or second round, and just never really got it back together after that. But, not to take anything away from Ortega, he threw it and he landed it, and it paid off for him. So
all part
I
of
don't
the
want to
plan.
give him exactly. It went to plan for him. So I don't want to, shit on him too much for that performance or getting that win there. For Yair Rodriguez, man, has to keep this fight upright, man. I just don't know if you can trust this guy to get out of bad positions like Max Holloway did against Brian Ortega, or even how Alexander Volkanovski did against Brian Ortega when they fought back in late last year. That's the concern that I have here. But I think that Rodriguez should be able to keep this at range. I think that Yair Rodriguez should be able to land the better strikes from outside. But do I fully trust him to do so? I don't. I really don't. Like, my pick for this fight is still Yair, but it's just I just don't know. I can't come to it to actually bet him here, even at plus 140, plus 150, because I could see that one little moment where he has a slip up and Brian Ortega goes out there and snatches up a neck and takes home a submission victory, which is obviously his path to victory here, right? I think we're getting about plus 200 on Ortega to win via submission. And that's got to be the way that you bet this if you do look to take that, even inside the distance, maybe dusts off that uppercut that he landed on Frankie Edgar and catches Yair Rodriguez by surprise. Ortega to win inside the distance is currently plus 150. So, not too far off by of the plus 200 you'd be getting on the submission. But man, again, it's hard for me to trust a guy that has that needs to, one, come back and win, have like a comeback type victory, and two, has just that he needs that one thing to happen. Does that happen at a minus 170 clip? I don't think so. Does it happen at a plus 200 clip? Maybe. That's probably where you're going to get your value, where you bet Ortega by submission. But in terms of a money line thing here, I think that Yair is the side. I am going to predict him to win. I am going to predict that I'm stuck between decision and KO, because Ortega can take so many fucking strikes and so much damage and keep coming forward. At what point does it finally go to shit? It could go to shit with one of these Yair Rodriguez head kicks, as those are usually pretty devastating. Yair by KO is plus 400. Yair by decision is plus 330. I'm going to lean Rodriguez by decision at plus 330, but I could absolutely be talked off of that. I want nothing to do with this main event. Ortega could just pull it out of his ass. And I think that's the side Cody's going to be leaning on here. So I'll let Cody take over in terms of the breakdown. I'll go Yair by decision plus 330. What are you going to go with?
Yeah, I got to go with Brian Ortega, and I think I'm for the official prop go with Brian Ortega by submission. If this stays a kickboxing match, yeah, Rodriguez has got flashy kicks and crazy spinning stuff, and he goes tit for tat, and he's got a hell of a chin on him, and Brian will probably, engage him in these shots and take a lot of bad shots and whatever. It'll be a scrap, The fight hits the ground. It's a significant victory for Brian Ortega. I think his grappling is just that much better. I think he should be able to advance position, should be able to lock up submission. So now our problem is, how do we get the fight to the ground, right? Well, this goes back to a similar concept of what we talked about with Sumudaerji. You see a guy who's bad on the ground, then it makes you think, well, geez, I wonder if they've improved. In Yair's case, when he fought Frankie Edgar, he got murdered on the ground. He was a big favorite. He's the young, hot prospect. Everybody likes Yair Rodriguez. Frankie's the old dog, the old champion, on his way on the decline, if you will. Frankie goes out there, easy money takedown, sets up shop in his guard, brutalizes him, ends up finishing him in the second round. You saw right then and there that this kid is a flashy striker, but grappling, not all that good. Now, the very next fight is the Chang Sung Jung fight. Now, him and Korean Zombie engage in a 25-minute war. Striking. It's a striking battle, right? So you don't get to see the limitations of his ground game because the fight never hits the ground. It's a striking battle. He's very nearly close to losing the striking battle, but of course, he pulls out a rabbit out of his hat with a late elbow that secures him the knockout victory. Otherwise, he's about to drop a scorecards loss. Good fight, but you don't see the ground game. The very next two fights are booked against Jeremy Stephens. Well, the first one's a no contest due to an eye poke. The second one, he beat Stephens by decision, but important to note, Jeremy Stephens took him down 3 times. That's especially important to note because Jeremy Stephens is not a wrestler. He doesn't have much wrestling to his game. Now, you're only as good as your last fight. That's the age-old adage, right? So let's talk about his last fight, Max Holloway. Now, Max Holloway's had 26 UFC fights. Pretty crazy, right? Of those 26 UFC fights, he's never scored more than 2 takedowns in a fight ever, except for that time he fought Yair Rodriguez. That's his career high for takedowns, is when he took him down 3 times. Now, even worse than getting taken down 3 times by Max Holloway is if you watch that fight, Yair Rodriguez, he himself falls to the floor on 3 other occasions. One, he tries to throw his flying knee up the middle, falls to his ass. The second one, he throws a spinning back kick, misses, falls to his ass. The third one, he just lands a straight up check kick. Just lands the kick on Max Holloway and then takes a step backward and falls to his ass. That one takes place in the 3rd round. Max Holloway falls into the ground, passes to Mount like nothing, and goes for an arm triangle choke. Bails on it. The fight resumes standing. Then Max Holloway dumps him down twice more. Brian may be able to go out there and get the takedown, but even if he doesn't go out and get a clean takedown, I think Yair Rodriguez is just going to fall to the ground. He's too wild. He's too chaotic. The reason his takedown defense stands at 50% is because he puts himself in bad positions to give up takedowns. And as such, I think he's going to give up takedowns. The other thing with Brian Ortega is people keep saying, oh man, he can't wrestle. Dude's an excellent wrestler. How many other guys can say as a claim to fame that they've gone out there? His last fight, he took down Alexander Volkanovski twice. The fight prior with Chang Sung Jung took him down 3 times. Before that with Max Holloway. Max Holloway had a best takedown defense in divisional history. Took him down twice. So low-key, he's got takedowns in his last 3 fights, and he's taken on Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, Korean Zombie. He's taking those guys down. You don't think he's going to be able to take down Yair fucking Rodriguez? I think he will. And if he does, Yair going to be in some shit. So flashy spinning kicks and elbows, all that looks good. The thing is, I've never seen a guy effectively land a spinning hook kick while lying on his back. In fact, I've never seen some guy land a spinning back fist or elbow while lying on his back, and I expect him to get taken down and spend some time on his back. So I go to Ortega. Again, Ortega straight up is fine with me. This is a prop show. His path to victory looks to be inside the distance. I would say under 4.5 doesn't look terrible as well, but I think I'm going to chase the dragon on this one and go with that Brian Ortega by submission to plus 200.
I could see it. Again. I feel like I could just talk myself into an Ortega bet as well. The flimsiness of Yair's striking and ability to keep it standing, even just kind of falling over his own strikes is a little bit of a red flag. But man,
can I add
if he's
something?
Smart at all, man. He should be able to keep the standing and just do work.
Yeah, I will also add this, and if we're gonna chase, a Louis I don't want to keep saying Louis; it just sounds so more natural.
You
Louis,
want him to fight for you, that's
Jourdain. I know, but it sounds so much more French. Charles Jourdain. Same thing as you're chasing a potentially a third round finish. I would look at Brian Ortega for a third, fourth, maybe fifth. Nah, maybe not fifth round, third or fourth round. When you look at him, his fight prior to coming to the UFC, Jourdain Rinaldi, third round triangle choke. That's cool. But the Thiago Tavares fight, he loses the first 2 rounds on all 3 judges' scorecards. Third round, comeback, baby, puts him away. Diego Brandao loses the first 2 rounds, chokes him with the triangle in the 3rd round. Clay Guida fight. You could argue that he's down 2 rounds. You could argue it's 1-1. Doesn't matter because he knocks him out with a knee right up the gut in the 3rd round. So now he puts together 3 straight 3rd round finishes. Had one against Rinaldi. Puts it 4 in a row when he beats Moicano. For the record, he's lost the first 2 rounds, all 3 judges' scorecards. Comes back with the 3rd round. Only guy in UFC history to score 4 consecutive 3rd round finishes. The next fight against Cub Swanson, he puts him away in the 2nd. That breaks the streak. But you're seeing here's a guy that can sometimes make mistakes and get off to a slow start, but eventually he'll find his opportunity. These guys were all beating him. Respectively, they were all beating him until they made one slip up and got choked. And you know who almost fell into that category? Alexander fucking Volkanovski. Yeah. He's bouncing this guy's head around. All of a sudden, it's like, oh shit, I'm in a triangle choke. I'm in a guillotine choke. This guy's got weapons. He's very effective. Thing with Volk is he got no fucking neck. Problem with Yair Rodriguez, he got a long neck. So I think Ortega is going to attack it. I think at some point he just falls into something. So this could be a good live betting spot too, where it's like Ortega gets pounced around for 2 rounds and then ends up falling onto something the later it goes.
There you go. Again, I want no action in this fight, but I do like those round 3, round 4 sprinkles on Ortega as he does will likely start to pick it up later. Not to mention, I've kind of ragged on Yair in the past that he does have a bit of a cardio issue. We saw it in the Jeremy Stephens fight where he starts to slow down in that 3rd round, although he did try to get Jeremy Stephens out of there in that 2nd round by emptying the gas tank. It's just something that I saw about his game when I would research him and research his earlier fights. Maybe that's something that Ortega can take advantage of. All right, let us get to Cloudbet's special props, and then we'll get into our 3 best prop bets here as well. Again, just a reminder, we are close to the 100 like mark. Make sure you guys hit that like if you haven't already. We still got 200 of you guys in here. All right, let's start off at the top here. Brian Ortega submission attempts, Cody, over under 2.5. What are you thinking?
I'm going to say under because I don't know how they're scoring it, but what I find is like you need a deep bite for them to ever acknowledge a submission attempt. You throw up like you got the arm, that's not a submission attempt. You need this arm like fully extended and then trying to step over. The guillotine choke. Oh, you grabbed a guillotine choke. Okay, but did the dude give up mount, try to alleviate some pressure? Like, was it tight? Yeah. So I hate those submission attempt props because you never quite get as many as you think in your mind you should have. But I would say under for the simple fact that he wouldn't need that many. I think he would need 2. One probably puts him away. If the first one don't stick him a second time. But he's not going to sit there and try 6 of them. Same shit with the rear naked choke. You see them adjust the position 20 times. Yeah. Well, how many submission attempts was it? Well, 1. Well, was it or was it a face crank? Also, what's a submission? Is a face crank a submission? Because you've seen it happen once. Shit hurts, by the way. Sure, it's bad, right? Well, Misha broke a guy's jaw, so like it ain't nothing to mess with, right? But at the same time, they're a little bit more. Yeah, who's judging it kind of thing. So I would officially say I'm going to say the under 2.5, but I don't love it.
Yeah, I like it. Plus 120 is what they're giving us for the under 2.5.
No, yeah, the price on that, not
plus money on that.
Sure.
Brian Ortega takedowns over under 2.5. What do you like in here?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Paul and I discussed this one on Wednesday. Like I was thinking over because of how easy it is to take Yair Rodriguez down, but he's thinking the same thing with how many submission attempts would you need is if he does get the easy money takedown, how many of them was he gonna need? Should he not be able to just get the quick submission? Which is fair. It's fair in its own point. But in a 5-round fight, it's a dog fight. Yair's the kind of guy that's going to get off balance, fall to the ground, might get back up, might fall back to the ground. You're going to get some quick takedown attempts on him. So it makes me lean towards the over. But you know what? I got the under on submission attempts. I'll take the over on takedowns.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the under on takedowns as well, because I think once he does get it to the ground, it might be a wrap. Like with how aggressive he is with his submission attempts and a guy in Yair who I think can quit, I think he could wrap it up. Here's a weird one. So you are taking him to win inside the distance. They do have Ortega by decision at plus 300. We're probably going with the no there at minus 391. I'm not even going to bother asking you for that one. Number of women's fights to go to decision. There are 3 women's fights on the card. As a reminder, it's Waterson versus Lemos, Murphy versus Tate, and then obviously the curtain jerker here, Penne versus Ducote. How many of them do you think go to a decision?
Yeah, decision. Sign me up for some decisions and some women MMA bouts. So I would officially go with 3 on that one. Ducote, Penne, both durable. I don't see Ducote getting submitted. I think that her striking game should be good enough to keep the charge going. Lemos, pretty durable. Michelle Waterson has shown all types of durability. I think that's kind of the case in point for a lot of these women's MMA bouts on this card is they're both durable. They both tend to go to decision. I would lean towards decisions on them. Even Lauren Murphy, Miesha Tate, much of the same. Lauren Murphy, her calling card is she's durable. Miesha Tate, she's durable. So I would go with 3. And at plus 275, like that's not a bad price tag.
Not a bad price tag at all. Yeah.
But sometimes I wonder though, like if I took all 3 women's MMA fights to go to decision and parlayed them together, would I get a better price than that? I don't know. Plus 275 it is. Let's see. Anyways, go on. Talk about the next one. I just want to see what it would
parlay that and let me know what you come up with. Fight of the night. A lot of people are saying that Charles Jourdain versus Shane Burgos should be minus 1,000 for this. They're currently sitting at plus 650, which I do think ends up coming to fruition. Yeah, out of all the fights on the card, I would probably lean with that the most. Second, probably being Ricky Simon versus Jack Shore. I could see that. But actually, you know what? No. Rodriguez versus Ortega is the one with the shortest odds here at plus 600 is probably between those 2. Either we get like a 5-round banger with Ortega Rodriguez with Ortega eventually finding a submission later in this fight. And then with Jourdain Burgos, do I even need to explain myself? We know what the fuck we're getting there. Plus 60 for that to win fight of the night. I'm right there with you. What do you got for that parlay, Cody? And then what do you like for the fight of the night?
Yeah, it'd be dope if they'd give us a future on like a fight of the year because like Burgos versus Jourdain could potentially be an absolute banger that everybody wants it to see it be. You know what? Like I think if you're trying to go with the obvious pick, it's obviously Jourdain versus Burgos. If you also look at, main event should be good. All these different picks should be good. But I think the one flying under the radar was Daung Jung versus Justin Jacoby. Listen, it'll probably be a striker's delight. Both guys are going to go. Daung Jung's got big power. Jacoby's got some good kickboxing. If it's going to be a 15-minute striking battle, it would be good. But, I mean, high emotion. There'll be a high emotion in some of these other fights. Jourdain versus Burgos is going to be a war. Rodriguez versus Ortega is going to be a war. I think Bill Algeo versus Herbert Burns, that could be like a sleeper pick for one potentially because it'll be a really good fight. And what people like to see is one guy dominates the first round, then gasses out. The other guy works his way back into it. You're in a tough spot third round. That's when the magic happens. Like that's what they're looking for is these absolute scraps that come down to the end. Johnson versus Malarkey was such a good fight because Johnson whips him in the first round, drops him. Malarkey comes back, drops Johnson. Second round, Malarkey kicks the shit out of Johnson. Third round, Johnson comes back, which, by the way, Johnson's not known for. All right, dude loses the second round. This thing is a wrap.
Yeah,
he come back in the third round. I was like, God damn it, he wouldn't let go, right? So you want those fights that are going to be competitive and close, and I think that's why Burgos Jourdain makes the most sense. You could get a late finish, you could get high emotion, you can get blood, you can get a damage, you can get all these different things that would likely lead it to that. But I think Daung Jung versus Justin Jacoby could be a really fun fight as well. Now plus 1,200, maybe makes a little more sense in that regard.
All right, last one here. Who will record the fastest finish on the main card? I'm going to lean with, man, all of them are tough, but I think I'm going to go with Jourdain at plus 1,200. Sumudaerji is the favorite here at plus 500, but I think that's going to go the full 15. Lemos is absolutely live to do so in terms of touching Waterson and putting her down, but I think that goes the full 15 as well. And the only other finishes I see are Ortega, but I think that's going to come later. I'm going to go Jourdain plus 1,200, probably even in the second round. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, fastest finish on the entire. Oh yeah, on the entire main card. I am going to go with. I'm going to say Brian Ortega plus 900 for the simple fact that I'm picking against Sumudaerji, right? Yeah. I'm picking against Charles Jourdain. Lemos is not knocking at Waterson. Matt Schnell. I mean, that could be a little sleeper pick too if he gets like a first round triangle or something like that. But Jingliang Lee, Muslim Salikhov at plus 800. He probably drops Lee, but no one's ever knocked out Lee, so maybe not the greatest price. Yeah, I would say Brian Ortega. That's the way I would go. And back to our earlier thing with the women's MMA. Yeah, much better price tag on betting on cloud bets than parlaying them all together.
Oh yeah,
you're like 2-1 parlaying them together. This is plus 275. It was much.
There
better.
You guys go. parlay boost on the fight, women's fight to all three go to decision at plus 275, courtesy of Cloudbet. Once again, link in the description below. Check them out. Shout out to Cloudbet once again. All right, let's get to our three best prop bets. Then we'll get you out of here, Cody. First of which, I'll start off. Simone versus Jack Shore fight goes to decision minus 190. I know Cody thinks that Shore could possibly knock out Ricky Simone here. I think the durability of both guys holds up. I think it's going to be a lot of clinching, a lot of grappling, and we see this go over the 15-minute mark. Give me minus 190 on that. Secondly, I'm going to go with Jacoby via decision at plus 240. I think he touches up Jung. I think he survives the early onslaught, and then he goes on to win rounds 2 and 3 and takes home a decision victory. The most talked about matchup this weekend. I'm going to stick to my guns with Dustin Jacoby. Let's go. And then lastly, I'm going to go with Muslim Salikhov and Li Jingliang over 2.5 at minus 160. Fight goes to decision is minus 120 as well. There's always those last 2.5 minutes that just make me shit my pants when guys are like, oh, I might be down. Let's just go swing for the rafters now and possibly get a knockout. So I don't mind taking the extra bit of juice on the minus 160 for the over 2.5 to potentially save us from a late finish. But I still like the over, and the fight goes to decision in that welterweight matchup. Cody, you're up, my brother.
Okay, first of all, I feel like I'm talking to imposter man, Pre, and I'm not even sure if you're the same person. First of all, you are wearing a regular hat for the show, which I'm not entirely used to. Second of all, a minus 190 and a minus 160.
I know,
Dog.
right?
I never seen that from you. Ever. I'm used to seeing plus 2,200 on a third round finish somewhere. All plus money, but I digress. I'm going to go with Miesha Tate by decision minus 105. Again, I'm going to take something that's not even plus money to kick things off. I think the UFC knows exactly what they want to do. Miesha Tate dropping down to 125. We need one singular win, and then we can thrust her into a title fight. They've told her this. This is why she's on record talking about it. They've tailor-made Lauren Murphy for that one opponent that she needs to win. She's bigger. She's stronger. She's more physical, more output. Thrives in the clinch, whereas where Lauren Murphy mostly has her most success. I think Tate gets the job done. To improve that 2-1 price tag, take her by decision, minus 105. Moving on, Greasy, we're going to go with another women's MMA bout by decision. By the way, shout out to Cloudbets. Might as well bet the three of them going to go to decision, plus 275. But Ducote by decision, plus 160. Now, how's Penne going to win this fight? Potentially with her grappling. She doesn't have the wrestling to take down Ducote. Ducote's got the grappling that if she chooses to take down Penne, I think she stays out of harm's way. She's a better striker. She's got better volume. She's stronger. She's more rugged. Where people will say, oh, yeah, this girl's making her UFC debut. She has big experience in Invicta. She has big experience in Bellator. And, of course, you look at her 3-fight losing streak in Bellator, all at 125. Since she dropped down to 115, much more comfortable. I think she's going to go out there and put on a show, but a show for 15 minutes. So plus 160, Ducote by decision. And then let's get something decent plus money anyways. We're going with Brian Ortega by submission plus 200. No disrespect to Yair Rodriguez. I think he's a fine fighter. But when you want to be that entertaining, then you're that chaotic and you're doing crazy stuff, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to leave a lot of holes in your game. A guy like Brian Ortega doesn't need you to make a whole lot of mistakes. Volkanovski makes no mistakes. And yet this guy almost submitted him twice, right? It doesn't take a whole lot of opportunity. You see he's got a history of doing it. You see Yair Rodriguez has got a history of struggling against grapplers. So all of this could pose to be true. And then the last thing is like, well, it's striker versus grappler. Well, what if Yair landed that crazy strike? What if? Could happen. Like Brian Ortega is part Mexican too, and he could take a frying pan to the face. The two worst beatings I've seen in recent memory both involve Brian Ortega taking them, and yet the dude still keeps with it. He's only 31 years old. I don't think he's shop worn quite yet. I don't think the chin's ready to go quite yet. And I think the fight will hit the ground at some point and he'll capitalize. So Brian Ortega by submission plus 200. We did also mention what was it? The Ricky Simone, but Jack Shore by knockout plus 575. But of course, that would go against our boy Manpreet. So I'm hoping he hits his bet, and I will give up my plus 575 this week. But I got a feeling old Ricky's about to taste some leather and might not like it.
Also, a juicy sub prop on match now that Cody liked as well, around plus 700.
Fair,
so
plus 700.
If you're liking that as well, go for it. I'm going Sumudaerji via
If
decision.
I hit even one of those, I'd be cute.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. All right, Cody, we wrap this up. Oh, almost got that 2-hour mark, but it is all good. You got more than enough time to get to the winner dog race, which I will likely see you at. I really want to go. Like, I know my life would love to see that shit, so I'm probably going to head out there as well.
You should come out. We'll hang out, some good Jay. And also, yeah, maybe bet some LFA. I don't know. We'll see where the night takes us, dude. We'll see where the night takes us.
I'll see if I can sell my wife on the LFA part, but we'll see.
Yeah. That might be a little harder than come to the wiener dog race. But are we at 100? We got 100 likes? because I will sit here and talk so goddamn long till we get to 100. Damn it!
Hey, we're gonna get the likes taken away if you say that.
Okay, never mind.
We're at 106. We're good. We're at 106.
All right.
107 now. So appreciate everybody banging with us and giving us those likes that we wanted. Again, 200 live viewers. We're getting back close to the odds days in terms of getting that live viewer count up, and I greatly appreciate everybody banging with us still. But yeah, Cody, please, back end here. Anything you want to say to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, not much, man. I got like a zillion projects on the go, but I'm trying to refine things and see what makes the most sense. So I always say like exciting news coming up, but yeah, that's what I'm waiting on. Exciting news all the time. So I like to stay optimistic. The last couple of weeks have been pretty good on a UFC standpoint. We've hit the top 2 tickets back-to-back weeks. I would love to do that again this week. But what I would love even more than that, hit a motherfucking PRP. So let's go for it. Let's hit some props. Let's hit a long one. This one's going to be absolutely greasy. Sometimes their best cards are these really greasy ass shit shows. So anyways, if you have questions, I've been really bad at getting back to people, but my intentions are there. Maybe I will see it. Hit me up at CJ Saftik. If not, Manpreet's got my number. If you need anything urgent, let him know. And yeah, I really appreciate the people that take their time out of the day. We shoot this show Thursdays. We're doing Thursdays at 3. And now we're doing Thursdays at 5. Now we're doing Friday at 2. This is actually the highest. This is the highest viewership we've got on the show live, on a live standpoint. So,
I believe so, yeah.
And it's a shitty fight night. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. UFC Long Island, 11 o'clock start time. So if you're waiting for the PRP, check for it tonight. I'll make sure to get it before the AM.
That's the only thing I'm seeing in the live chat here on the back end is when is Cody dropping his PRP. I'm like,
after the wiener dog race and after the wiener dog race, maybe before LFA.
Keep your eyes on his Twitter account at CJ Saftik. I'm sure he'll drop it tonight. Tomorrow morning would obviously be a little bit too late for most people, but I know he'll drop it tonight. So make sure you guys check that out. On behalf of myself, I'll be back in about an hour's time on my own channel, breaking down the fights once again with my guy Liam Picks Fights. I'll be able to go through the weigh-ins in total there, and we can talk about it a little bit more there. But Liam is a sharp mofo, as most of you guys know. So make sure you guys go to my channel, 5 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be going live there to break down the fights one last time. And then I'm going to go meet Cody, smoke a J, watch some wieners, race their asses off, and have a good night. So good luck on your best tomorrow, folks. Again, 11 a.m. Eastern start time. Don't get caught napping again. And we will catch you guys next week, hopefully on a Thursday instead of this Friday show. But Thursday next week, we'll see you guys right back here on the All-Star. Good luck on your bets, folks.